From Johannesburg, in South Africa. My name, of course, Evan Jansen. The show is always live, and of course, this morning we've got a special broadcast from the JSE. Let's go there.
That was the market open by our fathers of soccer in South Africa, 2016. Ndate Mutang, you may resume your speech. Sorry about that, it was not me, it's the market.
I was commending my colleagues for the contributions that we made in terms of taking football where it was at the time, even to bring it here today, the sacrifices that we made during those days. For us, in a nutshell, looking back, we can say we did it against all odds. We had a problem in our country. We all know we didn't have the same kind of opportunities and privileges, and therefore it was difficult. We went through difficult times, but today I think we can all feel proud that when we do exit the space, we are going to be leaving a very good legacy. So I would like to congratulate my colleagues for their contributions as well, and all other people who are not here, those of us who are still around, and those obviously who passed on, because this football journey has been eventful and very exciting. So once more, thank you to the JSE board for the recognition. And of course, in closing, I would like to wish Dr. Khoza a happy birthday. I think we do know how old you are. And we also know that you come from a dusty street in Alexander. But I think today we can all thank God that He gave us the blessings to have achieved what we have achieved. And I also thank my family as well. My parents gave me all the support that I needed at the time when I was still young, taking on big challenges. When I look back, sometimes I think, where did I get the energy to do some of the things I did? And I can only thank God. And of course, all the other members of the family and the larger member of the Kaizer Chiefs family, the larger family of the soccer fraternity as a whole. It is quite interesting that last week, Dr. Khoza and Jomo were locking horns, and this week it's Chiefs and Pirates again. So I think we need to repeat what Jomo did last week. Just to do justice to this cause, because I don't think it will be good to let Pirates, spoil the whole thing. Well, the father has to sacrifice, so this is your time to take the knock once more. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much for being here, and of course, thanks to the Johannesburg Stock Exchange.
Thank you for those wise words. And quite interesting that you have actually been in the industry. We don't know why you ran away, but it's fine. It's fine. You made a good career in the soccer fraternity. A disclaimer from the JSE, we cannot comment on what happens with the games, who's going to win, and so on. We are the exchange. We need to be very neutral. Ntate Sono, may I call you to the stage to address us?
Program Director. First and foremost, I would like to thank the JSE for the honor bestowed on the three of us. I think we deserve it. But my only concern with the JSE and the board, what I was not happy about was the JSE has told Kaiser and myself that they support pirates. Look at the colors. You know, so I would like to say to Kaiser, unfortunately, I would like to support you for the weekend. But, you know, it's a bit of a problem for me because I've just beaten my father and you're also going to beat your father. So in our culture, both of us can't beat the father the same weekend. So a draw will be okay. And it's good that I beat Paris. I feel good. I feel good. You know, just to go back a bit, as you know, we've been footballers all our life. And I grew up at Orlando East, and JSE is all about Inyogo. Me, when I came here, I thought, hey, I'm going to get some money here, JSE. The only thing I got there was cold drink and juice. But just to go back, you know, I used to sell apples and peanuts just to get my education going through. But as Kaiser said, I was also crazy about football. I just wanted to play football and football and football. But I grew up working with money. As I grew up, I started selling players. You know, I never knew that I'll end up here in the monies. But my highlight of my career was one year we went to Italy with Dr. Cosa. We jointly owned the Markfish. I was smart. I was clever. When I sold Markfish to pirates, I said, no, I'll retain 50% of Markfish. Can you imagine retaining 50% of a human being? I said, no. I'll retain Markfish 50%. We negotiated for a long time with Dr. Cosa. In the end, he saw that he can't break me, so we ended up agreeing. So Markfish played, became a household name. He signed with an agent, and Markfish became a big player, and Juventus, Lazio wanted to buy Markfish. And the agent came, and I said, no. When you talk about Markfish, you don't talk to Dr. Cosa alone. I have to sit there and listen and hear, because now we're talking of dollars or euro. So they called me to a meeting, and I sat there and I listened. And then I said, okay, now we have to fly to Italy. So we're sitting in different seats in the plane with Dr. Cosa, and we flew to Italy. And when we go to Italy, we find that Markfish, a deal was being done behind our backs by the agent. So, you know, Dr. Cosa, you know with trouble, you know. So he calls me, says, come, let's go there. And he says to me, he points a finger at me, he says, he speaks in Zulu, he says, must figure up. You become a very good guy. Me, I become a bad guy. And that time we needed the money. Eh? So we went, sat in the board. Dinozov was one of the top goalkeepers, comes along, and the agent comes. Hey, they started talking, you know, money. Hey, me, I'm in another world. I'm used to selling players with 1,000 rand, 2,000 rand here in South Africa. Now I hear them talking about $5 million. I said, oh my God, I'm in the right spot here. If God can ask me again what you want to do in your next life, I'll say, no, I want to back soccer because I can sell another Markfish. So we sat there, and I can tell you, ladies and gentlemen, for me, it was the first time I sit in a room where people were negotiating. It was unbelievable. Dr. Koza was unreal, and me, I was a nice guy. And I kept saying, no, man, don't get upset, Mr. Koza. and he says to me in Zulu, so we reached a deadlock where we couldn't agree. And he hits me with a knee, and he says, so he stands up. He says, I cannot stand this. I'm going. So when he turned, he says, he walked. He was worried of the money, you know, because if he goes, maybe they'll say the deal is off. So he says to me, don't forget to stop me before I get to the door. So I'm sitting there, I said to them, you see now, the chairman is upset. You upset the chairman. Wait. And I sprinted. But he's walking very, very slow. Because he wants me to catch him before he gets to the door. So I bring him back. And he goes, no, I don't want to talk to these people. They think we're selling monkeys from Africa. I don't want to talk to these people. I said, okay, Dr. Koza. Put him on a chair, and I went and I got water for him, and I told him, I said, please, gentlemen, let's agree on the fee. Please. Because now, if he walks out now, he's going to walk out forever, and you will lose a player. So the Italians went out. They said, excuse us, they came out. They came back. They agree on the fee. Now he has forgotten that he needs to sit now. He still walks out, but they've agreed. So I say to him, where you go? He says, I'm going to the loo. So I follow him to the loo. He says, well done, we got the money. So the negotiation skills, you know, I pick up some of them from him. Because, as you know, I sold a lot of players in South Africa, but it was mainly rands, you know. So I would like to say to Mr. Mtaung and Dr. Koza, as they said, we've come a long way. You know, people see us on TV, on radio, fighting, thinking that we're fighting. We're not fighting. We want you to come. The more we fight, the more you people come to the stadium. Look at the crowd we had at Potchefstroom. Because they think I'm fighting pirates. No, if you meet us in meetings, you won't go out. Because we spend hours and hours just jokes and laughing all the time. It's just jokes. Some of the meetings, PSL used to take 1 hour, 2 hours. We're just talking about stories. So I would like to thank JSE for honoring these three gentlemen. I think you deserve it, especially where we come from. Sometimes it was life-threatening. We took a risk, all of us. We were prepared, even if to die for the sake of football. And for me, as you can see, even the speech was done in order of the age, you know. Even the sitting there, it's order of the age, you know. We go this way and then down to the youngest Buccaneer, you know. I'm still a Buccaneer at heart, you know. It never changes. I'll always be a Buccaneer, and I think Mr. Mtaung feels the same, because you cannot neglect your dad, no matter, even if you get married and leave, you still think of Ekaya, Orlando East, and I would like to thank them for the support as well, you know, because I'm the youngest of the trio, and I'm the youngest of the trio as a Buccaneer. And lastly, I would like to thank my family. My wife, she's not feeling well, she's down with flu, for their support, because without a family, you're nothing. The family is your spine. Also the supporters at Cosmos. And also, not to forget, the people who are running the PSL, you know, they go through a lot of troubles. You know, Professor Schloss has been here for years and years. I think very soon the chairman will have to give you a watch. You've been here, Derek Blankensee, the staff, they go through hell from us, the clubs, especially when you lose a game, we always have something to say. But this weekend was different. I won, I had something to say. So I'm different. I would like to thank again all the people who made it possible, and also the people who came here so early in the morning. And it will be good for us and the players to start learning about JSE, because some of us didn't know anything about JSE, not referring to me. My JSE was Dr. Cosa in Italy, so I know about money. But thank you very much once more for the honor. Thank you.
Yeah, a special day at the Johannesburg Stock Exchange. The big three in South African soccer being honoured there at a special event. They rang the opening bell, as you saw at the beginning of the show. They rang the opening bell there to get matters underway. Of course, there is an announcement expected from them a little bit later. We'll be with our reporter, Mbongeni Mutwa. We'll be there with him a little bit later to get an update as to the goings-on at the JSE this morning. But we're going to take a short commercial break. When we come back, we pick up the education crisis here in South Africa.
Mancosa, Southern Africa's leading distance learning institution, accredited, affordable and accessible management education programs, higher certificates, diplomas, undergraduate and postgraduate degrees. Register at Mancosa and be part of Southern Africa's leading private business school. Visit our website mancosa.co.za. Mancosa, management education reimagined.
Welcome back. A little bit different this morning, but let's start with education. Basic Education Minister Angie Motshekga describes chunks of the country's education system as a national catastrophe, and it's characterized by pockets of disasters. The minister read the Riot Act to officials and teachers' unions in a speech delivered during a three-day education Lekgotla in Centurion last week, which was attended by education MECs and department heads. The minister stated that teachers in former African schools teach an average of 3.5 hours a day, compared with 6.5 hours a day for former Model C schools. This amounts to a difference of 3 years in schooling. The majority of children in the system are expected to compete at the same level with privileged learners, despite the deficit of 3 years of schooling lost through nothing but sheer ineptitude. The Department of Basic Education spokesperson Elijah Mhlanga is with us this morning to start this conversation. It's a tough conversation that has to be had at this moment in South Africa. Elijah, just put us in the picture. What led the minister to make those announcements, read the Riot Act, and really put a foot down, as it were?
Well, she's been observing the system. She came into office in 2009 to establish the Department of Basic Education as we know it today. And she's done several things, established a curriculum, established an initiative to build schools, and she has also established the Rural Education Unit, Maths and Science Unit, and all of those things has been done now. And she realizes that now what stands between us and a better achievement is the human factor. Now you need to push the people to make sure that people do what they're supposed to do, because you can have the best policies in the world, but if people are not discharging their duties honestly and with dedication, then you're not going to see the quality that you desire for.
3 years during a school career, lost 3.5 hours to 6.5 hours. Just talk us through that dynamic. It sounds frightening almost.
It is frightening. It was a research that was conducted in 2012 to look into the whole issue of teachers and the work they do inside a school. It was found that while they're in school, they're not necessarily inside the classroom. They're not teaching. And it did show that teachers in rural schools are not doing the work as it's happening in urban areas. And it's true. I mean, you can go to any part of the rural area, you'll find that on day one, learning is not happening. Probably even the entire first week, learning and teaching is not happening. Whereas in your former Model C schools, on the first Friday of the first week of opening, there's already a test, which means that learning has taken place. So such disparities cannot be allowed to happen. We all need to make sure that the quality of the education that the learners are receiving, whether in the rural area or whether in the cities, is exactly the same.
You talk about the human factor or the human element in this instance. Now, the minister's been quite candid. She said that heads will be rolling and she'll be going around the country to look at problem areas. Tell us about that and how it's going to be implemented.
Yes, she will be meeting the MECs tomorrow, in fact, to discuss all these things and also agree on a new plan of doing things, because it has shown in the researches that we have done that where things were supposed to happen, they haven't happened, and there are no repercussions. Now she's talking about consequence management, saying that if you are in charge of a budget of 900 million rand and you're supposed to build schools and you don't build those schools, what's wrong? What is it that you need? Because the money is there, the resources are there. What is it that prevents you from doing your work? So now we need to interrogate the performance of people. So she will be urging MECs and HODs to do their work in terms of holding people accountable, whether you're at a provincial office or whether you're at a district office. Everyone must do their work in the whole chain for the system to work, because it's a system, which means people at different levels need to make sure that they understand their roles and responsibilities and they discharge them as such.
Very much part of this system, Elijah, are the teachers' unions, and you're going to need to have buy-in from the teachers' unions. Some of the utterings have been a little bit negative towards the minister's crackdown. How are you going to engage the teachers' unions?
Fortunately, they were invited to the Lekgotla. They were there, they were present, they heard it from the minister. And we believe that they also want to see a good quality education in this country. They are also committed to ensuring that there's improvement across the board when it comes to learning outcomes. So we don't believe that they will be against anything that is aimed at improving the education system in this country. So we hope that as we go forward to engage them on the different aspects of the areas of education that are weak, that need strengthening, they will work with us. And we believe that because they are in the system, they are running the system, they will also do their best to make sure that we all achieve the goal that as a country we desire for.
Talking about that goal, the plan towards that goal, does it start now?
It starts now. Minister is meeting tomorrow with all the MECs. The following week we'll be visiting provinces to meet teachers, to meet school principals, to meet SGBs as well, to meet parents, to tell them that it cannot be business as usual, things need to change. And she has identified those areas that need to change. It means that everyone must play their part. And where there's a school that is not maintained, the communities must let us know so that the people in that locality can be held responsible for maintaining that school, because the money is there. We cannot allow a situation where money is returned to Treasury with work not done, yet there's a need for it.
Elijah, thank you for being so candid today and coming in and dealing with this issue. Of course, engagement is happening now around the country. We're asking you the question today around education after the minister's utterings last week. That's what we would like you to interact with us. What are the solutions to the basic education crisis? Is there a crisis? What do you think? Elijah says it's being addressed, and I want to thank him again for coming in today. Thank you. Now, let's go over to Elvis well, he's going to be talking to some of the teachers' unions.
Thank you, Eben. Now, addressing that three-day education, the hotline Centurion, the Basic Education Minister, Angie Motshekga, she claims that the education system is a national catastrophe. She also had very strong words for underperforming schools and departments and called for the immediate dismissal of underperforming principals and district directors, and also action be taken against teachers in former African schools, which are only teaching, we believe, 3.5 hours a day, as opposed to the 6.5 hours seen in former Model C schools. Now, for reaction on this, we are now joined by Dr. Anthea Seraseto, who is the president of NAPTOSA. Doctor, a very good morning to you and welcome.
Good morning.
Now, you were at the Lekgotla when the minister delivered the speech. Please tell us, what do you make of the minister's address?
NAPTOSA has thoroughly engaged with the speech of the minister, and we agree with everything she said. We recognize and would like to perhaps emphasize that we do have to put the future of our children ahead of political expediency. I do believe that our system is very much influenced by the politics, and we are concerned that deployment of people to key posts has in the past been politically motivated regardless of the competence of the officials. The Minister has recognized that, and she has said we've put mediocrity above what's important, and we commend her for that. And we really would ask that the Ministry and the provincial departments go ahead now and make sure that there are competent people in all positions where there is leadership and management of a high quality required. So we support all the Minister's statements. We're not so sure about the firing of the principals and the firing of the district officials, because if you're going to hold someone accountable, they do have to have some say in who has been appointed to deliver what they are responsible for. So principals who have to deliver, who have teachers on their staff who are not delivering, and who have reported that to the districts and no action has been taken, makes it really difficult for anyone to hold a principal accountable for the non-delivery of people, where they have tried to implement all the measures. So principals need support in order to be accountable, because the principals also need qualified teachers, and they need teachers who are teaching the proper hours. Where we have negligent teachers, action must be taken. We are obviously not in favor of random firing. There really needs to be sound grounds. We also need to check the capacity. Was the capacity to do whatever was required sufficiently developed? And were these people let loose without that capacity building? And to be fair, we need to make sure that there has been capacity building before we demand the accountability. Except where we have had deployments simply because of favoritism, nepotism, and all the other corrupt practices.
But do you think that the Minister is correct in stating that she will deal with these principals if they do not perform, if they do have a performance contract in place?
Yes, she can. Well, the Minister actually doesn't deal with the educators because the provinces will do it. But she will indicate to her provincial officials what she requires. And I do believe all the provincial department heads are on the same mission as the Minister. But we do have to go through the processes. Yes, there are performance expectations. They need to be clear. Sometimes it's not possible. You cannot get a performance out of a learner if there are psychosocial factors that are preventing the learner. You can't demand the same things out of every context. Different contexts have enormously different challenges. And schools, principals, districts need support with those other challenges, the psychosocial ones being one. Also parental or guardian community involvement. It is a critical factor. We say education is a societal issue. And we really need to deal with this very seriously. We need to get communities involved. If there are learners on the streets during school hours, the community needs to take action. If parents aren't satisfied with the education that their children are receiving, or the guardians of those children aren't satisfied, they need to take it up with the school, and if the school is not forthcoming with improvement, take it to a higher level. I do think that we have rather a passive society when it comes to education. There are plenty of service deliveries when it comes to roads, to water, and other infrastructure. I do think parents have a role to be far more involved in their learners' activities. There is research to say that regardless of socioeconomic conditions or the other factors that we blame, regardless of those factors, if parents or the community or the guardians are involved, They motivate learners, and learners achieve better. So we need to push for greater community involvement in schooling.
Doctor, just briefly...
Let's get some parental activism.
Yes, but briefly, Doctor, one of the things that the Minister touched on was teachers not being in class, especially in the government schools. As a principal and as a president of NAPTOSA, how do you ensure, though, that teachers are in class and teaching at all times, doing what they're supposed to do?
Well, that is one of the key management functions of a principal. We have a register, a time book, if you like. Teachers must check in. In my school, we have an early morning meeting, 7:30. School starts at 7:45, so 7:30 we have an early morning meeting where all the teachers assemble in their grade groups. So it's organized. Notices for the day are given to the teachers that they need to convey. So there's a kind of roll call that I do every morning, that I make sure that all my teachers are present, even before school starting time, and that the teachers are ready for the day, that they know the program for the day if there are any slight adjustments. And then they go off to register the learners, so we make sure that the learners are in class on time, and then off to teaching classes. I'm quite confident that teachers are teaching. Principals must walk around the school. They need to monitor what is going on in classrooms. And if they are hiding away and they are not present themselves, then obviously they can't fulfill that management responsibility. So it's a very tight control in that respect. And when teachers are absent unreasonably, principals need to report that in terms of our labor law. We take it to we do internal disciplinary measures first, and if we need to go higher, we go higher, so that in fact teachers who are absconding and not delivering, we don't want in the system. I don't believe any teachers' union wants irresponsible teachers in the classroom.
Okay,
if teachers are absent, the reason must be the sound reasons that are provided for in our employment contracts.
Doctor, that's where we got to leave it. Thank you so much for your time and joining us in studio.
Thank you.
That was Dr. Anthea Caraceto. She is the president of NAPTOSA, joining us in our Pretoria studios. But we continue this discussion. Over to Yeben.
Yeah, thank you very much, Jarvis. Of course, in his speech, the Basic Education Minister, Angie Motshekga, lambasted teachers who she said were hardly found in class and called for immediate dismissal of underperforming principals. It's caused quite a stir. We're asking you this question, but let's take a look at some of your comments this morning. Section 27, who's with us in studio shortly, says, we welcome Angie Motshekga's comments on the catastrophic state of basic education. You can see our statement on Facebook. Well, they'll inform us of that statement shortly. IG talks about, this is why I want to petition the Honourable Minister Angie Motshekga to bring back a subject called Izimpilo, hygiene studies. Then Janosuke Dono says, Angie Motshekga needs to include deductive reasoning in the school curriculum because it has failed the brothers and sisters on the TL. Those are some of the comments we're getting in. Let's take a look at our picture of the day now. This one comes from EmergiMed and Netcare 911 SA. It's captions, attending to a taxi versus car versus pedestrians on Louis Botha and Newark in Q. That is here in Johannesburg this morning, that picture from EmergiMed. Time now for us to take a short commercial break. When we come back, we'll be talking to Section 27 about their take on the Minister's comments.
As stories are broken around the world, SABC makes sure you do not miss out. As the stories unfold throughout the day, News at 8 updates all newsworthy stories worldwide. Globally, we are there. Locally, we leave no story untold. Make a date with news at 8 every Saturday and Sunday on SABC News, Africa's news leader.
Now, today is a historic day for soccer in South Africa. The Johannesburg Stock Exchange will honour South African soccer administrators. Orlando Pirates Football Club Chairman Dr. Irvin Khoza, the Chairperson and Managing Director of Kaizer Chiefs, Kaizer Motaung, and the owner of Jomo Cosmos, Ephraim Jomo Sono. Let's now cross to our reporter on the scene, Mbongeni Mutua, who is there. Very good morning to you.
Good morning, Elvis. Thank you very much. We are live here from the Johannesburg Stock Exchange, where we've just witnessed a very interesting and momentous occasion where the Johannesburg Stock Exchange was honouring the three legends of South African football, that is Dr. Irvin Khoza, Kaizer Motaung and Jomo Sono, by having them ring the bell, the opening bell here at the Stock Exchange today, so to speak. Right now I'm joined by Dr. Khoza. We'll have a chat with him, of course. Dr. Khoza, thank you very much for your time. A great occasion this. You all gave speeches and you rang the bell, so to speak, and you seem to be enjoying it. How did it feel?
Well, it was emotional that born in Alexander Township, finding myself in the trading floor. I think it's emotional because I feel that the experience I've gathered today, it must be taken to the schools where the kids are taught the value of the stock market. Because all what we know is to save, in the house, to save in the small banks. But if you save in the stock market, there's a value add, but it must be a long-term vision in terms of your investment and developing of your capacity in the marketplace.
Of course, the three of you, you're not just soccer administrators and soccer legends, but you're also eminent businessmen. I mean, you run a lot of business, universal business. Tell us a bit about that aspect of your achievements in the business world in general.
Well, I think, talking about the PSL, in 1985, our income was 300,000 rands a year. So today we're talking about almost R1 billion a year. So you can see the growth we have made in the last 8 years. And there was a notion before that black businesses cannot go beyond 20 years. And when we represent the PSL in 1985, to date, we can see what strides we have made. But more importantly, we're the biggest, well-organized league in Africa, the 10th most formidable league in the world. And in terms of income streams, we're number 5. In terms of the broadcast rights, we're the only league, I think, in the world that owns its copyrights to the fixture. And that in itself, it says how much work we have done. But more importantly, how many millionaires were produced in the PSL. But at the personal level, I invested in the stock exchange a long time ago. I had a long-term view. Legally, I know much I was doing at the time, but in the benefit of hindsight, it was a wise decision for me to get involved in that space. But what is important is the most important thing that needs to happen if you are a leader, is to make sure that your influence note remains constant, your influence account remains constant by maintaining the character that makes the market have confidence in you. So we have managed to create that investor confidence in the PSL, and that is why corporate South Africa supports the PSL.
Lastly, Mr. Khoza, we've seen over the past decade globally, big football clubs like your Manchester United, Liverpool and so on, they are listed in the London Stock Exchange and so on. Are we heading in that direction where we're going to see Pirates, Chiefs, Jomo Cosmos and others being listed on the jersey and, opening themselves up for people all over the world to invest in them?
Well, we were striving towards that because we still have to have the media in this country. First, talking about the business of football. Nobody has ever spoken the business side of football. And until we do that first, we cannot go to the stock market. Because the only thing football is a hobby, is a pastime. But they've never spoken about the business side of football. So if the media, the broadcasters help us for the people to understand the business side of football, then it's going to be easy for them to invest in their share in the football clubs, when it goes to the stock market. And until that time, they think it's just a hobby. But if they understand the business side, what we generate in the economies, of the community where we play, what we do for the players, what we do for the industry, what we do for other value chain beneficiaries of football, then it's going to be very important when you go to the stock market, people understand what is going to be their return if you invest in football.
Professor Kwaza, I thank you very much for your time and enjoy the rest of the day with your families. Thank you. Well, Elvis, we're talking the business of football at the JSE today. It's back to you.
Thank you, Mbongeni Mutwa. They're live from the JSE, and what a wonderful occasion for the soccer masters in South Africa. They're being honoured today. But let's go over to Eben for more on our issue for the day, our theme for the day that we're talking about education. By the way, we're asking you a question. Let's see if we can get up that question for you today. Question of the day: what do you think are some of the solutions to our basic education crisis? That is what the Minister calls it. You can let us know on the Facebook page as well as on the Twitter page.
Thank you, Elvis. Now, last year, rights group Section 27 won their case in the Supreme Court of Appeal against the National and Limpopo Departments of Education that compels them to supply textbooks to every child at the start of the academic year. Basic Education Minister Angie Motshekga says that there will be thorough compliance with the Supreme Court of Appeal ruling that each child should receive his or her own textbook. The court ruled that the department's failure to deliver one textbook per child in Limpopo at the beginning of the school year was a violation of their rights. Now, I'm joined in studio this morning by Kate Patterson, who's an attorney for Section 27. A very good morning to you, Kate. Thank you for joining us.
Hi, thanks for having me.
We're sort of dealing with the minister's utterances after this big Lekgotla last week. Maybe we can start with your reaction to some of the things that she said.
Sure. Well, as Section 27 has said in its statement, we're pleased for a start. As is true with any sort of recovery, the first step is admitting that there is a problem. And it is vastly different from what the ministry has said in previous years. So it's good to have that admission, but we hope that it will come with further accountability, because it also is not fine for the ministry to blame all of this on the provinces, when, in fact, the ministry should have been holding the provincial leadership accountable for the last few years.
Solutions. We're asking our viewers a question today. What do they think are the solutions across the board? What are some of the things that you think should be implemented almost immediately?
Well, at Section 27, we work largely with the low-hanging fruit of the education system. So you were speaking earlier about teachers not being in class. In the last couple of weeks, since the beginning of the school year, what we've seen is students who aren't in class because learners and parents are protesting schools because of their shoddy infrastructure. So as well as looking at teachers and the curriculum and making sure that teachers are in class, we need to make sure that the schools are actually habitable and that they're safe for learners to be in. And that when learners arrive at school, they have all of the textbooks that are required, in particular if teachers aren't going to be teaching as they should be.
You mentioned one thing that is a concern, of course, security, but security, sanitation almost goes hand in hand with textbooks, doesn't it?
Well, absolutely. I mean, it's impossible for people to learn in an environment that is physically dangerous to their being. And we see that in many of, particularly the rural provinces, schools are literally physically dangerous. I always say, and I will say again, that learners who pass in those conditions are truly exceptional.
Now, you're involved in a campaign to ensure adequate and hygienic sanitation. We've seen some of the horrific conditions on screen just now. Tell us a little bit more about this campaign.
Well, we represent the Komape family in their claim against the Department of Basic Education and the Limpopo Department of Education when their son, who was 6 years old, tragically fell into a toilet and died almost 2 years ago to the date, on the 20th of January. And we've brought that on behalf of the Komape family, but we've also brought it on behalf of all of the learners in Limpopo. And at the moment, there's an application on behalf of Equal Education to intervene on behalf of the learners in the country as well. So it's partially for that family, but it's also looking at the entire state of school infrastructure. But over and above that, we monitor infrastructure in the provinces, particularly again in Limpopo, and we provide that information to the Department of Basic Education and the Limpopo Department of Education. So one of the things that is so important about what the Minister said last week is that we assume that now she'll be working with us and not against us. So when we go to the department with figures that are absolutely atrocious and say that something needs to be done, and that these are our recommendations, we hope that we'll be able to work together and that she will take us seriously. Now, very briefly, we do always encourage the schools that we work with to also report to the Department of Education. They are obliged to do so. But at the same time, they report to us and to Basic Education for All so that we can hold the department accountable too. Now, I was listening earlier to the Minister's spokesperson, and it's interesting to say that there is enough money available, because there is enough money available, but the way that it is being used by the departments is just, it's insufficient. 323 Rand per learner per year is not enough to maintain school toilets. So we hope that the department will be listening to us and working with us to improve education.
You want to collaborate, but you also have to ensure compliance in this instance. How are you going to maintain that balance?
Well, we've been trying to maintain that balance for a number of years now, and I think our position is that it's actually up to the department how they maintain that balance. For instance, appealing a decision of the High Court which says that every learner is entitled to a textbook for every subject is a very strange thing for a department to do when it has the best interests of the learners at heart. Now the fact that the Minister said that they won't be appealing that further and that those are in fact their obligations indicates to us that they will be willing to be held accountable, because we all should have the same end goal in mind.
Absolutely. That's where we are with education. We should all start to pull together because it is a crisis. Thank you for joining us. Kate Patterson is an attorney for Section 27, and they've got the ministry right on their toes at the moment. Thanks for joining us this morning. We're going to take a short break. When we come back, we'll be looking at governing councils and the role of the principal. Don't go away.
SABC News. We report, contextualize and present news and current affairs honestly, fairly and fully. We consider it a duty to provide consistent, relevant, useful and top quality information and analysis. Our mission is to provide credible, accurate and interesting news programming, bringing news into everyone's homes in everyone's languages. Thank you, South Africa, for relying on SABC News for quality news output and for making us your #1 source of information. SABC News, Africa's news leader.
We're staying with our theme for today. Another catastrophe in the education system is the confusion on the management of schools. Now, the roles of principals and school governing bodies in managing a school are complex and appear to overlap, which can cause some conflict. South African Schools Act states that governing bodies are ultimately responsible for managing and controlling schools. The Act also states that principals who are members of the SGBs are not solely accountable to the SGBs, but also to their employer, the Education Department. Now, to clear some of this confusion, we have in the SABC Bloemfontein studios the Deputy Chief Executive Officer of the Federation of Governing Bodies of South Africa, Dr. Jaco Deacon. Doctor, very good morning to you and welcome. Jaco, first and foremostly, I would like to check with you.
Thank you.
What is the role of the school governing bodies in education, and how does the national catastrophe that the Minister is talking about affect you?
Yeah, I think it's important to distinguish between two important things, between a public school on one side and a state school on the other side. In South Africa, we don't have any state schools or government schools. We've got public schools. In essence, it means that it doesn't belong to the state. it belongs to the school community. But a school in itself cannot govern and manage itself. So in terms of the Schools Act, a school governing body is responsible then to be the governing structure of the school. So they form the eyes and the ears and the hands and the feet of the school. That's on the governance side. And you can compare a school governing body with the board of directors of a company. But the board of directors doesn't run the company on a day-to-day basis. The CEO of a company is responsible for that. And in the school terms, your school principal is the CEO of that company. So the governance will vest in your school governing body, but the operational management will be the duty and responsibility of your school principal.
So there's no confusion in what you see here, where the principal is responsible to run the school as well as report to government or to the department at the same time.
Now, indeed, the principal will report to the department on the curriculum matters, on the delivery of the curriculum, which falls within the classroom, and everything that falls outside the classroom is actually the responsibility of your governing body. So you'll report on finances, you'll report on the operational matters directly to the school governing body. Obviously, at the end of the year, he or she will submit a report to the Department of Basic Education in the provinces on the progress at the school. But the responsible body for that is the governing body. The principal is only the responsible person on the delivery of the curriculum, on the academic part of the school.
Now, the minister did indicate that the school system is in a crisis. Let's go back to that particular statement. Underperforming principals might be fired, she says, which, of course, the members of which is the principals, members of your organisation belong to them. What is your opinion to that?
I absolutely agree with the minister. That's the leadership within your school. We can see in high-performing schools you'll have a good leader in the school principal and you have good leadership within your governing body. It's impossible for a school to perform without quality leaders and quality leadership. So I would definitely start with your school principals. We should equip them to do their task, and if they don't do what they're supposed to do, they should be removed. But it's not only your school principal on the management, it's also the role of your governing body on the governance of the school. And if those two entities don't work together, it's unlikely that the school will perform. Those are the two sides of the very same coin. So you cannot simply say this is governance and this is management. So the interaction is important. Yes, we need to start with the school principals, but we need to make sure that governing bodies understand their roles and functions and the system to fulfill those duties.
Jaco, the minister also said that teachers in African schools are only doing duties through about 3.5 hours per day, where in Model C schools they're doing 5.5 hours. What is your take on that, and how can the SGBs assist the schools to make sure that the teachers do what they're supposed to do?
Yeah, I think that's the important role that parents and governing bodies should and must play. I'm not merely an employee of a department that will get a salary. As a parent, I've got a vested interest in the future of my child. I would like to get the best possible education for my child. So if the teacher is not doing his or her task, it's my duty as a parent to report the matter to the school principal, to report the matter to the school governing body, and they should then, if there's no action from those educators, formally proceed with disciplinary hearings and get rid of those educators in the systems. But as governors and as parents, we cannot remain quiet. If there aren't adequate textbooks, if there aren't enough chairs and tables in your classroom, and if our children don't get proper education, we should be open, we should be vocal about this and complain. It's not a duty of equal education or Section 27 or FETSAS to complain about the quality of the education of a specific child. It's the parents' responsibility, first and foremost. And parents need to be very vocal. Governing bodies need to be very vocal about the quality. And if not, we should go directly to the minister. Complain about the school principal. If he's not managing the school, take him to task.
Jaco, thank you so much for your time and joining us in our studio in Bloemfontein. That was the Deputy Chief Executive Officer of the Federation of the Governing Bodies of South Africa, Dr. Jaco Deacon. Well, we'll take a short, in fact, we go to the weather forecast right now, and we'll take a look at the weather on the African continent.
good afternoon. You're watching the Midday Report.
Lunchtime news amplified.
But for now, this is what they call home. Their hope to shift to a higher ground seems to be against the tide.
Midday Report provides you with more than just news stories.
I just want Port Elizabeth to know that they own a world-class theatre.
Good afternoon. You're with the news at 1 in the headlines.
Very good afternoon to you. This is News Live. I'm Natasha Thorpe. Let's take a quick look at what's coming up in your headlines.
Good afternoon and welcome to A View from the House.
For all things news, tune in to Midday Report weekdays at 12 noon, only on the SABC News channel.
Morning Live sets the agenda for the day.
We bring you the latest local and international news.
We are on the ball with all your sports activities and results.
We give you the latest business update.
We bring you the latest weather every time.
Watch Morning Live every weekday morning at 6 o'clock, bringing you everything you need to know before you go. Shap shap, tada.
Are you saying the king must go to jail? You are not royal blood, therefore you are going to serve time on behalf of the king. Where does the public protector stand on this matter? Are you with the marches, for the marches, against the march? If this is your ancestor, it is very much his ancestor as well, because this is the cradle of humankind. Is there God somewhere in your science? Drinking the blood of a person with albinism gives extra magical powers. A man of the cloth is involved here because it would mean that somehow religion is being brought into this part of the myth. What do you say to it?
Watch Question Time with me, Mpho Tsedu, Monday to Thursday at 5:30 p.m. on the SABC News channel.
Vera Ephraim defied family and traditions to follow her dream.
Decided that I'm going to prove to them that they were wrong.
The first breakthrough came in when she was studying and touring in Europe.
That was my first breakthrough.
Generations was her first television debut in South Africa.
It was my first gig. I was very excited. I was very happy. I said, yeah, this is confirmation I'm at the right place.
After pain, rejection, and suffering, her dream became a reality.
I followed my path, and I'm happy and grateful and blessed.
Join your host, Puleng Mulabati, on Bupilong every Friday at 17:30.
Health Talk, your show on health practice.
The people being empowered with knowledge so that they can change their behavior and reduce their risk of being sick.
How serious is stress at work?
If we don't address workplace stress, that negative stress, then it can lead to burnout and it can lead to depression.
How does absentees affect companies?
The one that's really problematic for employers is the one that is unscheduled.
How can companies organize their wellness program?
Health promotion mustn't just be a one-size-fits-all type of approach. It must be customized based on understanding of the unique needs of that particular organization.
For health tips that will help you to adopt healthy living with Dr. Sillo Mutawung on Health Talk every Saturday.
In 100 hours Central Africa time on this Wednesday, the 22nd of January 2016. This is Newsroom on SABC News Channel 404. If you've just joined us, Jumbo Africa, and a very warm welcome to the second hour. I'm Elvis Preston, and we'll be with you until 12 o'clock. You have to stay with us as we broadcast live from our Auckland Park studios in Johannesburg, South Africa, to the rest of the African continent. As you know, we're streaming live on YouTube with the entire show available on our YouTube channel. We're asking you a pivotal question today. That question is, what are some of the solutions to the basic education crisis? You must let us know on our Twitter handle at SABC Newsroom and on our Facebook page. But first, let's take a look at your news headlines. The African Commission on Human and People's Rights says it is concerned by the rising conflicts on the continent and wants the African Union to pay close attention. The United Nations chief has warned the Security Council that the current situation in the occupied West Bank is steadily chipping away the viability of a Palestinian state. And the World Bank has slashed its forecast for crude oil prices by $14 to $37 per barrel for 2016. Now, those are all your headlines, but first, before we get to the news, let's find out from Kendall Makamate what's happening on the sports front. Very good morning to you, Kendall.
Good morning, Elvis. Quite a lot happening in the cricket world, I'll tell you that. But before I get too far ahead of myself, let me also greet you at home. Good morning and welcome to the show. This is what we've got for you in the sports today.
End of the innings here from Bangladesh. Over they go. What a sight that is for any...
Defending champions, South Africa taking host Bangladesh on the first day of the ICC Under-19 Cricket World Cup.
Zakir Hassan.
And Angelique Kerber upsets Victoria Azarenka to march into the semi-finals of the Australian Open.
Today, we're announcing an independent review that will examine all aspects of tennis's anti-corruption programme.
Tennis authorities to review the Tennis Integrity Unit after accusations that it's been ineffective in rooting out corruption. And that's exactly what we've got for you in the sports. Be sure to stick around for that in about 20 minutes or so. Back to you, Elvis.
Well, that's all coming up with Kendall a short while, but right now, your top story this hour. The African Commission on Human and People's Rights says it is concerned by the rising conflicts on the continent and wants the African Union to pay close attention. The African Union is holding its summit this week, expected to discuss the security situation on the continent.
Peace remains elusive in parts of the continent, from terror attacks in East and West Africa to sectarian war in Central Africa, and fears of more violence in countries set to hold elections.
I think for all of us, the African Union and all its organs, to pay particular attention to the issue of elections, to ensure that people don't die simply because there is an election. But the insecurity or the conflict that some countries are experiencing give rise to a problem of internal displacement of people, including refugees.
Burundi is expected to dominate the African Union summit as the country continues to refuse an AU peacekeeping force.
There are issues of targeted assassination, and the right to freedom of expression has also been impacted upon because most journalists have fled the country.
There are fears Burundi could face an all-out civil war after talks between government and the UN Security Council failed to reach a settlement.
The negotiations are not really producing results because they are not moving as they should, finding compromises, finding ways of staying together, creating a more inclusive administration, a government, and then stop the violence.
The Commission has called for a more aggressive system of conflict prevention that includes early warning systems in troubled countries. The Commission's report on Burundi will be released in February. Lehana Tsotitsi, SABC News, Addis Ababa, Ethiopia.
Now, you have to stay tuned because we'll keep you updated at what's going on at the African Union. As you know, it will start this week coming, and we would like to look at the challenges of the African Union. That's tomorrow. That's our theme for tomorrow, Thursday, here on your favorite channel of choice on Newsroom, SABC News. Now, the trial of former president of the Ivory Coast, Laurent Gbagbo, is set to begin at the International Criminal Court in The Hague on Thursday. He faces 4 counts of crimes against humanity relating to post-election violence in the country in 2010. Our correspondent, Jack Parrock, filed this report.
Laurent Gbagbo will be the first former head of state to see his case at the International Criminal Court go to trial. He's accused of orchestrating the post-election violence in Abidjan in November 2010, following his election defeat to bitter rival Alassane Ouattara. 3,000 people were killed in the unrest. Laurent Gbagbo has been in ICC custody since the end of 2011. He'll be standing trial with his former ally Charles Blé Goude. The pair face 4 counts of crimes against humanity, including murder, rape and persecution. Blé Goude's lawyer has said that he will be pleading not guilty. 1,500 of Gbagbo's supporters are expected to protest outside the International Criminal Court as the trial begins. Jack Parrock, SABC News, Brussels.
The United Nations Secretary-General has warned the Security Council that the so-called facts on the ground in the occupied West Bank are steadily chipping away the viability of a Palestinian state. Ban Ki-moon was speaking at the quarterly open debate on the Middle East, including the Palestinian question.
It's a toxic mix on the ground, with random Palestinian attacks against Israeli civilians, often with deadly reprisals. Continued illegal Israeli settlement activity in the disputed West Bank and East Jerusalem, and an international community unable to move either side closer to the required compromises. The UN chief urged the parties to act now to prevent the two-state solution from slipping away forever.
Palestinian frustration is growing under the weight of a half-century of occupation and the paralysis of the peace process. Some have taken me to task for pointing out this indisputable truth. Yet, as oppressed peoples have demonstrated throughout the ages, it is a human nature to react to occupation, which often serves as a potent incubator of hate and extremism.
Palestine's ambassador accused successive Israeli governments of preferring a colonial rather than a peace agenda.
It is an understatement to say that any settlement unit built anywhere in our occupied land brings us a step closer to the end of the two-state solution, two-state vision. The international community must directly address this and send an unequivocal message to Israel now before it is too late.
Israel's ambassador rebuked the Council's inaction on months-long terror attacks against Israelis.
During the past 4 months, Israelis have been stabbed in their homes, shot at in the streets, and run over by terrorists using cars as weapons. Over the course of this wave of violence, 30 people have been killed and hundreds have been injured. Not once were the lives of Israelis murdered by terrorists recognized by the Council.
With both ambassadors calling on the Security Council to act, on the one hand to condemn Palestinian incitement, on the other to condemn illegal settlements, both which undermine the prospects for peace. Sherwin Brycepease, SABC News, New York.
4 people have been killed and 3 others seriously injured in a truck that overturned at Ndedwe, north of Durban. Local municipality mayor Maxwell Khadebe says it's suspected that the truck's brakes failed. Meanwhile, here in Gauteng, the Gauteng Education Department is to offer post-trauma counseling to staff and pupils at the Crestwold Secondary School in Bramley in Johannesburg, following the death of one of its pupils. 2 people, a 12-year-old schoolboy and a driver, died when a vehicle ploughed into a group of children walking on the pavement of a busy road. 21 others were hospitalized due to their injuries.
So A gruesome crash, a young life cut short. This eyewitness, who didn't want to be identified, details the last few terrifying moments before the taxi driver collided with their car.
We were waiting on the opposite side to turn at the traffic lights, which were not working. We waited in the oncoming traffic for the first sedan to pass us. When it was our turn to cross the road, when the driver of the Avanza came speeding, he didn't even stop at the lights. That's when he hit the children.
The children had been waiting for transport home. 19 people were injured, mainly children.
One car broke through the robots and hit another car and then hit kids that were standing there waiting for their transport. It's a very traumatic, tragic incident. One learner has passed away, 19 have been taken to various hospitals. We express our condolences to the family and wish those other kids speedy recovery.
Residents living in and around the area say the street is notorious for such accidents, as most of the traffic lights at the intersection do not work. The department says it will engage the municipality to strengthen security.
We'll have to assess what safety measures are in place here to ensure that the learners, when they go around here, they are safe. And we'll engage the municipality to see if at all we can put in place safety measures like a scholar patrol system here to protect the learners from this kind of incident.
Traffic was heavily backed up along Louis Botha as paramedics and Metro Police tried to clear the scene. An investigation is underway. Nozindombi Mia, SABC News, Johannesburg.
Democratic Alliance leader Musi Maimane says his party is pushing for legislation to make it easier for people to obtain employment. Now, he was speaking ahead of today's jobs march led by the DA through the Johannesburg CBD. The DA says close to 2 million South Africans have joined the ranks of the unemployed since 2009. Let's now cross live to our reporter Eldrin Sampier, who is in Johannesburg. Eldrin, a very good morning to you and welcome. And can you give us an update?
Well, good morning, Elvis. We're coming live to you from the Westgate shopping centre here in the Joburg CBD, where thousands of DA supporters and members have gathered, and they will march through the CBD, painting the CBD blue as they march for jobs. I'm just going to step out of shot quickly just to give you a sense of how many people have turned out so far. As you can see, it's just blue out here at the Westgate shopping centre. More people are expected to come through. We see more buses actually coming through to the Westgate shopping centre as the DA members and supporters march for jobs. They say they want jobs and hope that this march will really make sure that that call is echoed throughout the CBD as they march through the CBD, where they have that poster that was set up where they blame President Jacob Zuma for all the jobs that have been lost in the country. And remember that that poster has been defaced. But right now I'm joined by the provincial leader of the DA here in Gauteng, John Moody. John, thank you so much for joining us. You must be pleased with the turnout.
Indeed, we planned for 10,000, but we're expecting over 13,000. Broader society has indicated a willingness to march with us in solidarity with the millions of unemployed South Africans, a country, a nation that is crying out for hope and indeed looking for leadership that is accountable and that will take hold of the opportunities that South Africa is so pregnant with, so that we can utilize those opportunities for the benefit of all South Africans to give them a better future instead of just the few. So today we march in solidarity with our brothers and sisters, our family members who are destitute, who are unemployed and are still trapped in that poverty, in that slavery of unemployment and dignity that is lost. Today we march for dignity. Today we march for a brighter South Africa and for a future in which all South Africans will be able to prosper.
Well, this is not the first march that the DA has had when it comes to jobs. The last time you marched to the ANC's headquarters, we remember what happened there. You're not marching to the ANC headquarters this time around, but just in terms of the security measures that you guys have put in place this time around. Let's speak quickly about that.
Well, we did a risk assessment together with the SAPS and with the Metro Police. And our marches are always peaceful marches. Our marches always have a purpose, and the purpose is for a better South Africa. And this time around, our opponents have realized that they need to respect our rights as every other citizens' rights, to a march that is free from intimidation and the threat of violence. And hence, I believe that we are going to have a peaceful march for once. But South Africa needs to take note that the DA will never stop to continue to march for a better future, irrespective of what the challenges may be.
Well, we see today here most of the supporters that have turned up are black people, and I want to quickly just speak about the DA's policy when it comes to the employment equity in the country.
Well, we believe in an equal opportunity society. We're saying that there must be fitness for purpose, and we believe that every South African should be given an opportunity, a fair opportunity, and that is our premise from which we move. We recognize the injustices of the past, and we do know that redress needs to take place, and we are fully supportive thereof.
Well, perfect. That is the provincial leader of the DA here in Gauteng, John Moody. And later on, we'll try to touch base with Herman Mashaba. You remember the controversy that he caused after the DA elected him as their preferred candidate to run the municipality of Joburg. Later on, we will be touching base with him just to find out where his stance is when it comes to BEE, which obviously has to speak with what happens to black people when it comes to employment as well as business opportunities. Well, Elvis, it's back to you now in studio.
Aldrin Sampier, that's a reporter in the CBD of Johannesburg. Firefighters in the Cape St. Francis area spent the night on high alert following a flare-up of the weekend fires. 3 unoccupied holiday homes at Rebels Rus were destroyed in the blaze. Good rain and a change of wind direction brought some relief for the firefighters. The flames are believed to have been contained for now.
Planning for the night ahead. The biggest headache for Fire Chief Dewald Barnard, the ever-changing wind direction.
Currently, we are at the rendezvous point. We discuss our tactics for tonight. According to the weather control services, the wind will change tonight at 12, coming 50 knots or 50 kilometers an hour in a westerly direction. We're preparing for that. We've provided a fire break on the northern side of the road leading to Cape St. Francis, and try to minimize the fire intensity and to prevent the fire from jumping the road and burn again into Cape St. Francis.
Food supplied by volunteers ensured that his men were refreshed and ready to face whatever the weather had in mind. For many, this fire was one of the worst they've ever experienced.
The fire came with a wind at about 60 to 70 kilometers an hour, and we fought it face on. A couple of firefighters had to be evacuated by ambulance. Me, myself, was one. But we recuperated and we're ready for it, and we fought it today.
Fire breaks were burnt to prevent the fire from jumping the road again. Firefighters have spent most of the night patrolling the road behind me, putting out hot spots on either side of the road. Their main aim is to prevent the fire from spreading back towards Cape St. Francis should the wind change. In Rebels Rus, a remote area west of Cape St. Francis, at least 3 homes were destroyed by the fire. Janine Lee, SABC News, Cape St. Francis.
Well, that's your news for now. We'll take a break and we'll be right back after that.
Get all the latest news from the SABC's online news services on our website. Breaking news and in-depth coverage of everything from business, sports to politics and lifestyle. Catch the top news clips and watch live streaming of major news events on the SABC News YouTube channel whenever. Stay connected on the SABC News Facebook page and have your say on news that matters to you. And for the latest headlines and live updates from our reporters, follow us on Twitter. SABC Digital News, anytime, anywhere.
Good morning, welcome back, and I'm Kendall Makhamat, and I've got your sports news, and we'll start off this sports bulletin with our top story for today. The ICC Under-19 World Cup got off the mark in Chittagong, Bangladesh this morning, with the defending champion South Africa taking on the hosts. Bangladesh won the toss and chose to bat, getting to a competitive 240 for 7 in their 50 overs. A short while ago, South Africa were 44 for 3 after 14 overs. Now here's some of the highlights so far.
Nice action. Have to go some here. Has to go. That might go upstairs. Oh, some turn, and they've gone up, and importantly, the umpire's finger has gone up.
He's gone.
Things here from Bangladesh. Over they go. What a sight that is for any fast bowler.
Opportunity taken.
The ball.
He goes for the scoop, but it's such a brilliant execution of a Yorker from Mulder.
A very smart cricketer and captain, as we know. And
it's gone. Smart catch. The Bangladesh captain has struck for his team. Where he hit that. Oh, what a sight. The bowler struck.
Yorker and bowled. The off bail has just toppled out of its groove. And Shaferdin has got his second wicket.
All right, we'll keep a close eye on that one to see how well South Africa defend in their very first match. Now, the meteoric rise of promising British tennis star Johanna Konta continues as she advances to the semi-finals of a Grand Slam tournament for the first time. Konta beat Chinese qualifier Zhang Shuai in straight sets in their quarterfinal clash at the Australian Open in Melbourne. She'll be facing 7th-seeded German Angelique Kerber, who disposed of 14th seed Victoria Azarenka of Belarus.
24-year-old Konta started the 2015 season at number 148 on the world rankings. 1 year later, she's set to break into the top 30. The British number 1 dominated the clash against Shuai from start to finish. She recorded a 6-4, 6-1 victory in 82 minutes to become the first British woman to reach a Grand Slam semi-final since Jo Dury 33 years ago.
In terms of the occasion of the match, I really didn't put anything on it. I just wanted to make sure that I came out here and played the best level that I could and gave you guys hopefully good entertainment.
Kerber, meanwhile, saved 5 set points in the second set of her match against Azarenka. She then staged a superb fight back to beat the two-time champion 6-3, 7-5 for the first time in 6 outings, and advanced to her first Grand Slam semi-final in Melbourne.
I was just saying to myself, just play like you play on your practice courts and just go for it. Just believe that you can beat her. And I'm actually so happy that I beat her for the first time.
In the men's draw, a determined second seed, Andy Murray of Britain, enjoyed several moments of brilliance against 8th seed David Ferrer. Despite losing the second set in the tiebreak, Murray advanced to the semi-finals in 4 sets over the gutsy Spaniard. Liesl Zankel, SABC News.
Now moving on to more somber news, Ed Warner, the chairman of the UK Athletics, says that Russian track and field athletes should not be allowed to compete at the Rio Olympics, and that current world records set before doping testing started taking place should be removed from the record books.
To preempt a question you might ask me, do I think they should be back in time for Rio? No, I don't. Not at all. The men's shot put record was set in 1990 by an American called Randy Barnes, and today's throwers can't get within about half a metre, 60 centimetres of his distance. He was subsequently banned for life from the sport, but his record still stands because the ban came subsequent to him setting the record. The World Championships are coming to London next year in the Olympic Stadium. We would love those to be the first championships in a new era. That's very ambitious, but there are things that could be done for London that would give the public more confidence. We want to see the IAAF engaging with us. We're organising these championships, I'm the chair of them, to put in place some of these measures so that you can turn up at the Olympic Stadium and really believe what you're watching.
And that's why we take a break from the sports. We'll be back with more sports and more news a little later. Make sure you're on for the 11:30 because we go big then. We'll take a short break. Stay tuned.
MANCOSA, Southern Africa's leading distance learning institution, accredited, affordable and accessible management education programs, higher certificates, diplomas, undergraduate and postgraduate degrees. Register at MANCOSA and be part of Southern Africa's leading private business school. Visit our website mancosa.co.za. MANCOSA, Management Education Reimagined.
We kick off this week's show by seeing how Kenyans are paying tribute to the victims, as well as not only how they've coped, but how they returned stronger after the attacks.
Last year, images of the 4-day Westgate Mall attack saturated front pages.
In the Democratic Republic of Congo, artists have assembled to celebrate the peace this war-torn country has not had in a long time.
No conflict that can't be solved without a conversation.
The Journal, every Saturday at 1:30 on SABC News.
SABC News. We report, contextualize and present news and current affairs honestly, fairly and fully. We consider it a duty to provide consistent, relevant, useful and top quality information and analysis. Our mission is to provide credible, accurate and interesting news programming, bringing news into everyone's homes in everyone's languages. Thank you, South Africa, for relying on SABC News for quality news output and for making us your #1 source of information. SABC News, Africa's news leader.
Children's rights and health are a priority in the journey of good health.
All children should have access to adequate health care, not only curative but preventative as well.
How to identify ADHD on children.
ADHD is a childhood disorder which manifests with the symptoms of hyperactivity, impulsivity, and/or inattention.
Is breastfeeding still a vital nutrition to babies even today?
Breastfeeding for the first 6 months of life is absolutely crucial.
Catch Health Talk with Dr. Sello Mutawun every Saturday from 9 till 10 a.m. Vera Ephraim defied family and traditions to follow her dream.
Decided that I'm going to prove to them that they were wrong.
The first breakthrough came in when she was studying and touring in Europe.
That was my first breakthrough.
Generations was her first television debut in South Africa.
It was my first gig. I was very excited. I was very happy. I said, yeah, this is confirmation I'm at the right place.
After pain, rejection, and suffering, her dream became a reality.
I followed my path, and I'm happy and grateful and blessed.
Join your host, Wileng Mulabati, on Rupilong every Friday at 17:30.
A very good afternoon. You're watching the Midday Report.
Lunchtime news amplified.
But for now, this is what they call home. Their hope to shift to a higher ground seems to be against the tide.
Midday Report provides you with more than just news stories.
I just want Port Elizabeth to know that they own a world-class theatre.
Good afternoon. You're with the news at 1 in the headlines.
Very good afternoon to you. This is News Live. I'm Natasha Thorpe. Let's take a quick look at what's coming up in your headlines.
Good afternoon and welcome to A View from the House.
For all things news, tune in to Midday Report weekdays at 12 noon only on the SABC News channel.
Welcome back. Newsroom continues here on SABC News. Of course, today we're asking this question. What are the solutions to the basic education crisis here in South Africa? Of course, we all know about the minister's utterances at Lekgotla last week, calling it a national catastrophe. Well, earlier we were joined by Equal Education General Secretary Tsepo Motsepe, and we asked him about the basic education minister's claims that the education system is that national catastrophe, and this is what he had to say.
Well, we think that the minister has, since 2013, has changed tune, and we welcome her honesty. And we think that what she has laid out onto the table is a true reflection of the system. In particular, how if we were to define public education in its raw form, take into account the millions of learners who come from poor backgrounds, who depend on the public education system to improve their livelihoods. These are young people in dysfunctional schools in townships and in rural provinces.
Is there perhaps a sense that the minister's changed her tune?
Well, you know, there's two things one can read from this sudden turnaround. If you compare 2013 and you compare the minister now, what she has done is to say there are problems within the system and these are some of the challenges. At the center of everything else is the teacher, which in most cases we need teachers. She has put blame squarely, consistently throughout the years and said SADU must play ball and must come to the fore. And SADU as a union, and I want to stress that, SADU as a union and not teachers as people who are trusted with making sure that the system works. SADU as a union has been reluctant to be able to get into discussions and making sure that we improve the system. Instead they just say, well, the minister needs to meet with us first in order to be able to address some of these issues.
Now, the minister gave a stern warning to teachers who are underperforming, saying that teachers in former Model C, or African schools rather, they teach an average of 3.5 hours a day compared to 5.5 in former Model C schools. That's a difference of 3 years of schooling. What's your take on that?
Well, that is true. And we need to not only just look at that and say, well, the teachers are not doing their work. We need to be brutally honest. And let's take a case in point, the Eastern Cape, and we should use the Eastern Cape nationally as an example of a failing education system, where teachers are teaching under difficult conditions, where teachers have to first deal with children who come to school and walk 15 kilometers to school, where they need to teach learners who are hungry, where they need to teach learners without classrooms, children sitting on the floor. Now, those are some of the challenges. So before they can start getting to the business of teaching and learning, they first need to mitigate those issues. And I think the minister is being simplistic and also passing the buck. At the same time, the Eastern Cape and Limpopo, the two poor-performing provinces, if we were to use the matric results, were put under administration in 2011. What has been the minister's role in making sure that the Eastern Cape, as we sit currently, is still under administration, meaning it's overseen by the Department of Basic Education here in Pretoria? What has been her role in making sure that a province like that improves? So to just purely say it's the teachers without addressing some of the systematic challenges which she's responsible for overseeing is just a limited overview, we think.
As equal education, would you then say that the problem, is it with the teachers, is it with SADU, or is it with the department?
Well, the problems in education are both historical and new. New forms of exclusion are starting to emerge, and those speak to the political patronage that is there within the system, where one needs to be a union, belong to a union, particular union, to become a principal or to get a post in the district. So these things have found their way, these problems have found their way throughout the system. The department has done its role nationally to be able to say, this is our vision. Provinces have not come to the fore. So where we find the department at fault is at provincial level and at district level. And where we find the problem with the unions is with the union themselves and playing politics with the lives of our children. Where we find problems with teachers is where teachers say, well, we're not getting the support that we deserve, therefore we'll continue as business as usual, which should not be the case. But at the end of the day, we need to be brutally honest in saying, for us to say the teachers in the classroom are the problem is just a limited overview of what is currently going wrong in the education system in the country.
As equal education, what do you see as some of the solutions to the impasse that we have?
We think first and foremost that there has been a number of young graduate teachers that are coming into the system, and these are people whom we should invest heavily in. We are also seeing improved infrastructure in education as something which will mitigate some of the challenges we face. We are also seeing the bureaucracy, the number of district officers that are in place currently within the system is totally a wasteful expenditure. We should be spending money on teaching and learning and not on salaries. And we need to relook how we organize the bureaucracy within the education system to be able to support the core business of public education that is teaching and learning.
Mr. Motsepe, thank you so much for your time and joining us here in studio.
Thank you very much.
Now that was Equal Education General Secretary Tsepo Motsepe being brutally honest about the issues that's confronting the education system.
Progressing through high school can sometimes be daunting for students and parents alike, from choosing the right subjects, getting top grades, choosing a field of study and applying for a university, even funding. But there's a new help platform called Stoogle that is ready to guide both students and parents through every step of schooling. Joining us now from our Sea Point studios in Cape Town is the CEO of Stugel, Jason Basel. A very good morning to you, Jason. Thank you for joining us.
No problem. Thanks for having me.
Stugel, very interesting idea. Just give us the broad strokes. How does it work and what brought about the idea?
Sure. So, I mean, the whole objective is Stugel. Our tagline is all things student. And what we're trying to do is we're trying to cover every key decision point from grade 9 when you make subject choices for your senior high school years through to matric when you're deciding where to study, what to study, how to finance your studies, bursaries when you get to university, getting textbooks, when you leave university, getting a job. So our goal is to cover the full spectrum of information gaps for students and parents right from grade 9 till when you leave university. And the whole thing behind this is that we believe that education in South Africa, yes, there's a lot of bureaucracy problems. Yes, there's a lot of sort of large-scale stuff that needs to be done by government and big organizations. But we believe that the core of the problem can really be solved at a micro level, one-on-one with students. Students knowing what they want to do and what is the best way to get education in that field. And that's what we're trying to do with Stugel.
So, if I get it, you pretty much take the pain out of it by doing all the admin for parents and students in this space.
I suppose you could say that. It's so we have a number of different products. The main one being Stugel.coza, and that's an information portal. So it's articles, it's videos, it's tutorials. Trying to literally just provide information for students and parents. Trying to explain what a degree is really about. I studied a finance degree. I finished my honors in 2014, and I hated every second of it. And the stuff that I found on the university websites, you know, what I thought that the degree was about, it actually had nothing to do with that. So we're trying to be the sort of practical source of information here. If we can show students what a degree is really about, what you would actually end up doing after university, we think that'll be hugely helpful. And on other fronts, we have things like bursaries, which will take a lot of administration out of it. It'll help students to apply to 50 bursaries instead of 2 in the same amount of time, and that sort of thing. So it's taking the pain out of it on the admin side of things, and it's providing a practical resource, which just doesn't exist at the moment in South Africa.
What about an aptitude test, for instance? Do you assist students with that, those that are maybe a little bit unsure?
We do. We do that one-on-one with our journalist team based in Hout Bay and also in Johannesburg. But we kind of have this opinion that typical aptitude tests, A, B, and C, multiple choice questions, we don't find that it works. So I think there's a lot of intricacies and circumstantial things that aren't taken into account with those tests, and we prefer to chat with people one-on-one. It's always better to take full circumstances and situations into account, and you can only do that with people involved.
What about those who don't get into university or those who want to venture in specialized field? What about aviation and fashion and those kinds of things? Do you assist those people as well?
Like I said, this is all things student, and I capital all. We do everything. Anything related to student stuff, go to our website, you can see it there. But there's a lot of opportunities for people who are sort of, if you failed matric. I know there's been a whole lot of contention around the pass rate this last year. There's so many things you can do. There's distance learning colleges like College SA. They're becoming such a big thing. At the forefront of these things are MIT Online, edX, and Khan Academy, things like that. College SA. So people who have failed matric, there's so much opportunity for you, and I think you'd be surprised. What we're finding through our research is that distance learning qualifications are actually becoming much more recognized in the workplace. Companies are not trying to fill their employee base with CAs and specific qualifications. They're trying to fill them with personalities that kind of mesh together, and so what you study, where you study, is becoming less and less important. And we definitely believe that distance learning, anything that's super practical, is starting to carry a lot more weight with corporations. So there's a lot of things you can do if you failed matric, and you can find a whole bunch of stuff on our website. If you failed a degree or you want to change degrees, there's so many private colleges. The TVET colleges are doing really well. The private design schools, like Open Window Design School, they're doing great. And the energy on these campuses are fantastic. And we really encourage people to go that route.
I see you have a special page for parents. What are the things that parents need to know?
Yeah, so to make our business sort of viable, students don't have any money. So the parents are where the money is. And quite honestly, the parents are the ones who are more interested in what their kids are going to study and where than the kids. The kids don't really care, as long as they're not at home, staying with mom and dad. So yeah, the parent section, it's kind of everything you need to know. Setting your child up for university, how much money you should be giving them for their budget. If you can't afford it, where to find bursaries, what bursaries are right for your child. I mean, there's so much. I could go into endless detail, but yeah, the students are more of our market than this. I mean, the parents are more of our market than the students, quite honestly.
Jason, it's a fantastic platform. Thank you very much for helping us. That's Jason Basel. He's the CEO of Stugel. It's a platform that helps parents and students to navigate this difficult time in all of our lives when you need to make decisions about what you're going to do with your life. Anyhow, let's shift the focus now to the courts here in South Africa. This is what we have today. We start in Bloemfontein. A Johannesburg man who was arrested in Sasolburg in the Free State in 2014 for the possession, manufacture and distribution of child pornography is expected to appear in the High Court. He faces 935 charges, which include rape and sexual assault. Then, down in the Western Cape, an application to set aside the appointment of Cape Agulhas Municipal Manager Dean O'Neill will be heard by the High Court. He's accused of nepotism and political interference relating to O'Neill's appointment in 2013. That's, of course, Marius Fransman. Let's move on quickly now to take a look at Newsroom's Facebook page. Here behind me, of course, Burundi's President Pierre Nkurunziza has told members of the United Nations Security Council that his government will not negotiate with those who attempted to overthrow his government in May of last year. Then, here in South Africa, Democratic Alliance leader Mmusi Maimane will lead supporters on a jobs march through the Johannesburg CBD today. Also, the University of South Africa has extended student registration following protests by workers demanding an end to outsourcing of staff at the institution. That is our Facebook page. Of course, you can visit us there, or you can go to sabc.co.za/news. That's our website, where you can also get all the latest. Now, touching on Burundi, with the country expected to dominate the AU summit agenda, SABC News contributing editor Vuyo Mvoko caught up with the country's foreign minister, Alain Aimé Nyamitwe. The summit is expected to take some tough decisions in an effort to clear up the violence and, well, the wave of displacements in Burundi.
The situation back in Burundi is quiet and very much under control. I can tell you that irrespective of what the narrative has been over the last months, even as we speak, in Burundi, people sleep peacefully. The UN Security Council, when they visited Burundi 3 or 4 days ago, they were able to see it for themselves. They even took a ride into the countryside to see the president, and we had to go back to the capital for them to take their flight when they arrived around 9:30, 10 p.m. And the road was peaceful, going and coming. So I can say that little by little, even the world is seeing that the narrative that they were fed with was not necessarily true and was not something that was durable. We might have had hiccups here and there, but we continue to believe in peace, to believe that Burundians love peace and want to live in peace, with each other.
And the situation in the back last year were called the pockets of violence in or within Bujumbura. Are those now quiet? Have the guns gone silent? Are there no more burning tires and barricades on the streets?
Definitely no barricades, no roadblocks. But every once in a while, you'd hear a gunshot or two, but generally those areas are calm today. You can ask your friends or people in Bujumbura that can tell you. It happens. It could happen that once in a while a man who has a gun decides to shoot in the air to let everybody know that he's still around, but they are not in any way threatening the general security balance of the country.
Meanwhile, South Sudan rebel leader Riek Machar has reiterated his complaint that President Salva Kiir's creation of new states is an impediment to ending the 2-year civil war there. Machar called on outside mediators to reject the president's move.
President Kiir sacked rebel leader Machar as deputy president in 2013. This ignited a conflict that has killed thousands of people, driven more than 2 million people from their homes, and sparked fears of famine in the oil-rich nation. The two signed a power-sharing deal in August 2015, but both sides have since accused the other of violating the pact with the new attacks.
Once you hear that the parties have agreed on a draft of a constitution, and the draft is taken to the Transitional National Assembly, and the Assembly has passed it, the next day I will be in Juba. Because if I went to Juba now, what will I go and do? Complain? Get restricted not to come to Kampala? Now Kampala will be home to me these days.
The UN Sanctions Panel that monitors the conflict in South Sudan for the Security Council said in an annual report that South Sudan's both leaders qualified to be sanctioned over atrocities committed in a 2-year civil war. The report said that Machar and Kiir are still completely in charge of their forces and are therefore directly to blame for killing civilians and other actions that warrant sanctions. More than 10,000 people have been killed since the beginning of the civil war.
Now let's take a look at the front pages from around the African continent. We'll start in Zimbabwe today. The Herald reports there that Harare's City Council has dispatched teams of medical experts to investigate the magnitude of typhoid cases and limit further spread following confirmation of several incidents amid fears of a major outbreak. In Zambia, the Post says police in Kalomo have arrested 2 young people and intensified the search for others suspected to have booed President Edgar Lungu when he visited the area last week. Finally, in Namibia, the Namibian reports that operations at the University of Namibia's Winter Campus ground came to a halt yesterday after the Namibia National Students Organization demonstrated against student registration fees. That's a roundup of some of the headlines around the continent. Now, back here in South Africa, history was made earlier today when the Johannesburg Stock Exchange honored 3 South African soccer administrators. Orlando Pirates Football Club Chairman Dr. Ivan Khoza, Chairperson and Managing Director of Kaizer Chiefs, Kaizer Motaung, and the owner of Jomo Cosmos, Jomo Sono. The 3 soccer legends were honored for their contribution to the soccer industry in South Africa and the role that they play in the country's economy.
I would like to thank the board of the JSE for the recognition and the honor bestowed upon us here today. A lot of people do not realize the impact of football in terms of the socio-economic needs of our communities, what football contributes in that regard. I can quote a lot of areas in terms of the GDP, what we contribute towards the GDP. In fact, recently in the PSL, we commissioned an economic impact study just to see what football contributes towards the economy of the country. And the results were very much incredible, very interesting to see that football plays a very, very critical part in terms of the economy.
I would like to thank
JSE for honoring these three gentlemen. I think you deserve it, especially where we come from. Sometimes it was life-threatening. We took a risk, all of us. We were prepared, even if to die for the sake of football. And for me, as you can see, even the speech was done in order of the age, you know. Even the sitting there, it's order of the age, you know. We go this way and then down to the youngest Buccaneer, you know. I'm still a Buccaneer at heart, you know. It never changes.
Talking about the PSL, in 1985, you know, our income was 300,000 rands a year. So today we're talking about almost R1 billion a year. So you can see the growth we have made in the last 8 years. And there was a notion before that black businesses cannot go beyond 20 years. And when we represented the PSL in 1985, to date, we can see what strides we have made. But more importantly, we're the biggest, you know, well-organized league in Africa, the 10th most, you know, formidable league in the world. And in terms of income streams, we're number 5. In terms of the broadcast rights, we're the only league, I think, I guess, in the world that owns its copyrights to the fixture. And that in itself, you know, it says how much work we have done. But more importantly, how many millionaires were produced in the PSL.
Yeah, the Chiefs fans will never agree, but in the end, we are all Buccaneers. We are all Buccaneers here in South Africa. That's where we leave the news for now. Time for our weather update with Phil Hawkins. We'll see you later.
All right, a very good morning. Let's start off your weather by taking a look at a cloud forecast. And as we have come to expect, seeing a lot of cloud cover all the way throughout Central Africa now. And once again, being drawn down towards the eastern regions of Southern Africa as well. Now, of course, again today, as we saw yesterday, we're expecting the concentration of storm systems over the far northern regions of Mozambique, just affecting the surrounding areas as well. But we're also expecting another concentration of rainfall in the Central African western coastline there, and that's going to continue as we move later into today. In fact, it will intensify by this afternoon, begin to recede as we move into tomorrow. Now, in terms of your pressure systems, we're seeing some rather low pressure systems approaching Cape Town there into today, and in fact we're expecting isolated showers in the region as a result of that. A 23-degree maximum there forecast for Cape Town. Pretoria peaks at 30 degrees, a nice warm day in Harare, a 27-degree maximum. And as we move further north, we're going to see those low-pressure systems beginning to affect Lilongwe and the surrounding areas as well. A 30-degree high for Lilongwe for today. Very, very high humidity expected for the area as well. Now, Kilimanjaro peaks at 34, as does Mombasa. Both areas expecting a bit of rainfall there, and the cloud cover continues along the coastal regions around Mogadishu there, 31-degree maximum. Inland towards Addis Ababa, the 24-degree maximum from yesterday continues into today, although we are expecting a little bit of rainfall now. In Juba, 34-degree maximum there under sunny skies. Now, this is going to be a hot day, and humidity is very low in the area. Relative to this time of year. So we are expecting that there. Tehran cooling all the way down to 3 degrees, expecting snow again for today. So second day in a row that we're expecting very, very similar conditions all the way throughout the Middle East, although Baghdad cooling down to 9 degrees and Damascus 5 degrees. A very, very cold one behind a frontal system there. Warming up again as we move from east to west here. Benghazi peaks at 17 degrees. Tunis 19, Algiers sharing that 19-degree high. And by the time we reach Marrakesh and Las Palmas, 22 and 21-degree maximums forecast. Cloud cover over the western coastline continues down around Conakry, Monrovia, Abidjan, and Lagos. All these areas are expecting only partly cloudy skies, and a lot of it is going to be low level, although we are seeing higher level cloud cover penetrating in towards Bamako, a 28-degree maximum there for you. Now, the Central African western coastline, as we said, expecting a lot of rainfall for today, but that concentration of rainfall really is around Libreville and these surrounding areas. This is where storm systems are going to move from that area down towards Congo-Brazzaville and Kinshasa as well. As a result, these temperatures are going to be warm, and rather as a result of that, we're expecting some very high humidity in the area. Now, this is where you can contact us with your feedback. Email us at weather@sabc.co.za or give us a phone call. 011-714-5077 gets directly through to us in the office. That's where I'm going to leave it for now. Have yourself a great day.
A very good afternoon. You're watching the Midday Report.
Lunchtime news amplified.
But for now, this is what they call home. Their hope to shift to a higher ground seems to be against the tide.
Midday Report provides you with more than just news stories.
I just want Port Elizabeth to know that they own a world-class theatre.
Good afternoon. You're with the news at 1 in the headlines.
Very good afternoon to you. This is News Live. I'm Natasha Thorpe. Let's take a quick look at what's coming up in your headlines.
Good afternoon and welcome to A View from the House.
For all things news, tune in to Midday Report weekdays at 12 noon, only on the SABC News channel.
As stories are broken around the world, SABC makes sure you do not miss out. As the stories unfold throughout the day, News at 8 updates all newsworthy stories worldwide. Globally, we are there. Locally, we leave no story untold. Make a date with News at 8 every Saturday and Sunday on SABC News, Africa's news leader. Health Talk looks into the increase of suicide and symptoms leading to suicide.
The death wish grows when you go into depression after a lot of stress.
And often when we talk about suicide, we don't talk about a person wanting to stop living, but rather wanting to stop living in pain.
After losing everything in life that lead you to no options but suicide.
I had that spirit of fear in me to say, don't even face tomorrow.
After being overwhelmed with stress and trauma, it becomes difficult to have self-control.
People learning tools and skills that will practically enable them to meet these challenges.
In trying times, never be alone. Reach out for help to a better solution.
Support should be done by a counsellor or psychologist where you're able to speak about how you're feeling in a safe, accepting, non-judgmental space.
For all your health tips, join Dr. Silo Mutawung every Saturday from 9 till 10.
I'm sorry, gentlemen, ladies and gentlemen, we have been banned.
It didn't happen to me on that day because I was already in jail when it happened.
I was scared that when I get back to Joburg, I was going to be arrested. Well, I wasn't. Who are you asking? You're looking at me?
Yes, Beta, I'm talking to you.
So the old fuddy-duddies like Dennis and me will remain there?
I just want to say, Joe, that the thing about... damn, go on, and it's coming back to me.
So much more than just the Legal and Rights show. Join Dumile Mateza every Sunday at 2 p.m. only on the SABC News channel.
Makamelo Sekhontse, one strong woman who said no to hunger. She never allowed circumstances to pull her down. At daybreak, she is up and running in the streets of Johannesburg to make her living. After 12 hours of hard work, she goes back home being able to put food on the table. Join me, Bulemo Lebatsi, on your show about those who take on and conquer life challenges every Saturday at 5:30.
It's 1100 hours Central Africa time on this Wednesday, the 27th of January 2016. This is Newsroom on SABC News, Channel 404. If you've just joined us, Jambo Africa, and a very warm welcome to the final hour. I'm Elvis Preston. I'll be with you until 1200 hours. Stay with us as we broadcast live from our Auckland Park studios in Johannesburg, South Africa, to the rest of the African continent. We're asking you a very important question today. We're asking you, what are the solutions to the basic education crisis that we have in the country? We would like you to tell us on our Facebook page and on our Twitter handle at SABC Newsroom. But first, let's take a look at all your headlines. The African Commission on Human and People's Rights says it is concerned by the rising conflicts on the continent and wants the African Union to pay close attention. The UN chief has warned the Security Council that the current situation in the occupied West Bank is steadily chipping away the viability of a Palestinian state. And the World Bank has slashed its forecast for crude oil prices by $14 to $37 per barrel for 2016. Now, those are your news headlines, but first, before we get to the news, let's find out from Kendall Makamate what's happening on the sports front. Very good morning.
Good morning, Elvis. So we've got cricket as well as tennis going on down under as well as out on the subcontinent, and we've both got a national team as well as no South Africans left to that Open. But this is what we've got for you in the sports. Good morning.
Ended the innings here from Bangladesh. Over they go. What a sight that is for any
defending champions. South Africa take on hosts Bangladesh on the first day of the ICC Under-19 Cricket World Cup. This as Angelique Kerber upsets Victoria Azarenka to march into the semi-finals of the Australian Open.
Oh, and Angelique Kerber is into the semi-finals of the Australian Open.
Today, we're announcing an independent review that will examine all aspects of tennis's anti-corruption programme.
Tennis authorities to review the Tennis Integrity Unit after accusations that it's been ineffective in rooting out corruption. And that, in a nutshell, is what we've got for you in the sport at about 11:30 or so. Be sure to stick around for that. Back to you, Elvis.
Thank you, Kendall. Top story this hour. The African Commission on Human and People's Rights says it is concerned by the rising conflicts on the continent and wants the African Union to pay close attention. The African Union is holding its summit this week, expected to discuss the security situation on the continent.
Peace remains elusive in parts of the continent, from terror attacks in East and West Africa to sectarian war in Central Africa, and fears of more violence in countries set to hold elections.
I think for all of us, the African Union and all its organs, to pay particular attention to the issue of elections, to ensure that people don't die simply because there is an election. But the insecurity or the conflict that some countries are experiencing give rise to a problem of internal displacement of people, including refugees.
Burundi is expected to dominate the African Union summit as the country continues to refuse an AU peacekeeping force.
There are issues of targeted assassination, and the right to freedom of expression has also been impacted upon because most journalists have fled the country.
There are fears Burundi could face an all-out civil war after talks between government and the UN Security Council failed to reach a settlement.
The negotiations are not really producing results because they are not moving as they should, finding compromises, finding ways of staying together, creating a more inclusive administration, a government, and then stop the violence.
The Commission has called for a more aggressive system of conflict prevention that includes early warning systems in troubled countries. The Commission's report on Burundi will be released in February. Lehana Tsotitsi, SABC News, Addis Ababa, Ethiopia.
South Sudan rebel leader Riek Machar has reiterated his complaint that President Salva Kiir's creation of new states is an impediment to ending a 2-year civil war. Machar called on outside mediators to reject the president's move.
Kiir sacked rebel leader Machar as deputy president in 2013. This ignited a conflict that has killed thousands of people, driven more than 2 million people from their homes, and sparked fears of famine in the oil-rich nation. The two signed a power-sharing deal in August 2015, but both sides have since accused the other of violating the pact with the new attacks.
Once you hear that the parties have agreed on a draft of a constitution, and the draft is taken to the Transitional National Assembly, and the Assembly has passed it, the next day I will be in Juba. Because if I went to Juba now, what will I go and do? Complain? Get restricted not to come to Kampala? Now Kampala will be home to me these days.
The UN Sanctions Panel that monitors the conflict in South Sudan for the Security Council said in an annual report that South Sudan's both leaders qualified to be sanctioned over atrocities committed in a 2-year civil war. The report said that Machar and Kiir are still completely in charge of their forces and are therefore directly to blame for killing civilians and other actions that warrant sanctions. More than 10,000 people have been killed since the beginning of the civil war.
The trial of the former president of the Ivory Coast, Laurent Gbagbo, is set to begin at the International Criminal Court, the ICC, in The Hague on Thursday. Now, he faces 4 counts of crimes against humanity relating to post-election violence in the country in 2010. Our correspondent, Jack Parrock, filed this report.
Laurent Gbagbo will be the first former head of state to see his case at the International Criminal Court go to trial. He's accused of orchestrating the post-election violence in Abidjan in November 2010, following his election defeat to bitter rival Alassane Ouattara. 3,000 people were killed in the unrest. Laurent Gbagbo has been in ICC custody since the end of 2011. He'll be standing trial with his former ally Charles Blé Goude. The pair face 4 counts of crimes against humanity, including murder, rape and persecution. Blé Goude's lawyer has said that he will be pleading not guilty. 1,500 of Gbagbo's supporters are expected to protest outside the International Criminal Court as the trial begins. Jack Parrock, SABC News, Brussels.
The UN Secretary-General has warned the Security Council that the so-called facts on the ground in the occupied West Bank are steadily chipping away the viability of a Palestinian state. Ban Ki-moon was speaking at the quarterly open debate on the Middle East, which include the Palestinian question.
It's a mix on the ground with random Palestinian attacks against Israeli civilians, often with deadly reprisals. Continued illegal Israeli settlement activity in the disputed West Bank and East Jerusalem, and an international community unable to move either side closer to the required compromises.
The UN chief urged the parties to act now to prevent the two-state solution from slipping away forever.
Palestinian frustration is growing under the weight of a half-century of occupation and the paralysis of the peace process. Some have taken me to task for pointing out this indisputable truth. Yet, as oppressed peoples have demonstrated throughout the ages, it is a human nature to react to occupation, which often serves as a potent incubator of hate and extremism.
Palestine's ambassador accused successive Israeli governments of preferring a colonial rather than a peace agenda.
It is an understatement to say that any settlement unit built anywhere in our occupied land brings us a step closer to the end of the two-state solution, two-state vision. The international community must directly address this and send an unequivocal message to Israel now before it is too late.
Israel's ambassador rebuked the Council's inaction on months-long terror attacks against Israelis.
During the past 4 months, Israelis have been stabbed in their homes, shot at in the streets, and run over by terrorists using cars as weapons. Over the course of this wave of violence, 30 people have been killed and hundreds have been injured. Not once were the lives of Israelis murdered by terrorists recognized by the Council.
With both ambassadors calling on the Security Council to act, on the one hand to condemn Palestinian incitement, On the other, to condemn illegal settlements, both which undermine the prospects for peace. Sherwin Brycepease, SABC News, New York.
The World Bank has slashed its forecast for crude oil prices by $14 to $37 per barrel for 2016, amid growing supply and weak demand prospects from emerging markets. In its annual Commodity Markets Outlook, the Washington-based institution lowered its price forecast for 37 of the 46 commodities. Our reporter Kate Fisher reports from Washington.
In this report, World Bank economists said that weak demand would continue while oil supply grows with the resumption of Iranian exports, continued US production, and despite the recent snow, a mild Northern Hemisphere winter. The senior economist at the World Bank who authored the report warned low prices for oil and commodities are likely to be with us for some time to come. Well, oil prices began to tumble during the summer of 2014. That was in response to a slowdown in China's factory output. The country's manufacturing industry, which in the aftermath of the 2008 financial crash has become the world's largest single destination for oil and metals, stopped buying commodities at the previous high levels. Any tumble in commodity prices is bad news for South Africa, as its economy is so reliant on them. It's particularly sensitive to what's happening in China. And so as China's output slows and it needs less raw materials, that has a huge impact on the South African economy because they sell so many of those raw materials to China. And it's being seen across virtually all sectors. Metal, gold, platinum prices are both down, coal prices are down, and in agriculture too, maize prices remain low. And if this period of low commodity prices continues for a significant length of time, it could have an impact on long-term investment in South Africa, as foreign investors will be less keen to put lots of money into any of those long-term infrastructure projects like ports, railways or mines. Kate Fisher, SABC News, Washington.
SABC News has uncovered yet another money for jobs scam, possibly involving millions of rand. Police are looking for the owner of an establishment in the Johannesburg CBD. Following our investigation, the alleged scamster's leasing agreement could be terminated soon.
A fraud case has been swindled out of hundreds of rand, promised jobs that never materialize. On entry, we find some victims. How much did you pay?
I paid 500.
Unaware they're being taken for a ride.
Today they had to assign me to a job, which they said I must come back after 30 minutes, and I came back, but then there was nothing.
Scattered across the table, CVs of those already duped, and a cash book, proof of the monies taken. To add insult, the establishment purports to be in collaboration with Lulaway Agency, but the Authentic Job Centre says its name is being used for illegal dealings.
We started getting complaints of people saying they came into a center and they were charged 400 rand and they were promised a job, and where's their job? And as we sort of followed that trail, we started realizing that these guys are actually using our name.
So we approached staff. Lulaway has been here before, and all that you are doing at this point is that people are coming and paying their monies here and not getting jobs at the end of the day. Huh? Why are you doing that?
The investigating officer is looking for the suspects who at this stage is suspected to be in Nigeria.
Open the door, ma'am. Can you please leave? The doors are fast closing on the scam.
If the tenant is in breach of his lease agreement, we'll take the necessary steps to cancel his lease and have the tenant removed.
City Property says it will follow up with police. Criselda Lewis, SABC News, in Johannesburg.
Now, joining us now in studio is our reporter, Griselda Lewis, to give us an update on the story. A very good morning to you and welcome, Griselda.
Thank you very much, Elvis.
Now, we do understand there's some developments on the story. You want to update us on that?
Oh, absolutely. Quite astounding what's happened between our broadcast last night and this morning. We understand that another fraud case has been opened against this institution by Imratech College. You would recall that this bogus institution had been using the names of two legitimate companies. It was first Luluway Recruitment. You saw in that insert the managers of Luluway Recruitment saying that they found out last year that their name was being used in order to scam people. We got a call this morning as well from Imratech College. They've also indicated they opened up another fraud case against this institution this morning. So certainly it seems to be growing. The numbers of people that have problems with this institution certainly seems to be growing.
How long have they been operating now, this
They've been operating for quite a while, as we understand, Elvis, more than a year. And what we do understand is that the monies that they've scammed people out of run into millions. Some of the books that we managed to get our hands on during our investigation found that there were several documents that indicated that every individual was being asked to pay different amounts of money. So quite shocking what was really happening in the CBD. But I must indicate that City Property was one of the people to really step up quite quickly, because they're indicating that they have a zero tolerance approach towards corruption and any form of illegal activity. They will be kicking out that tenant out of their building.
Now, what is the modus operandi of this institution? How do they go about doing their business in recruiting these people that they scam?
Job opportunities, the desperation for jobs in South Africa. People will fall prey to anything or anyone who promises them a job. So essentially what they do is that they would advertise on the internet that they're looking for cashiers, they're looking for tellers, and a range of individuals. Then once you call the number that is provided, they would send you an SMS, and immediately they tell you to pay about 500 to 600 rand up front before you even sit down for an interview or an assessment. Quite shocking what the assessment is as well. One of the issues that we could not touch on in our broadcast yesterday. The assessment is nothing but a piece of paper. When you look at the questions that are being asked, they're quite ridiculous, if I may put it that way. And to ask yourself who is invigilating, who is assessing these answers is certainly one of the issues that we still need to get to the bottom of. But the desperation for jobs is certainly what draws so many unsuspecting people to these operations.
What is the police saying? Will these people be arrested? And what about the victims? Will they be compensated?
Good news relating to the victims. We're very excited about this. We also got a telephone call from the Luluway, the legitimate Luluway agency this morning. And they're saying they've been trying to clamp down on this institution for quite a while. What they're willing to do, we know that more than 100 of these desperate job seekers were looking for employment. They are saying they're willing to accommodate more than 100 of them at the different agencies and help them find work. This is a legitimate agency that often places people. So what turned out to be a hopeless situation clearly turns out there seems to be some light at the end of the tunnel. Certainly, everyone seems to be coming to the party to try and assist some of the victims who fell prey to this institution.
Definitely sounds some very good news at the end there, Griselda. Thank you so much for joining us in studio. And if you are a bogus institution, beware. Griselda is out there. We'll take a break and we'll be right back after that.
SABC News. We report, contextualize and present news and current affairs honestly, fairly and fully. We consider it a duty to provide consistent, relevant, useful and top quality information and analysis. Our mission is to provide credible, accurate and interesting news programming, bringing news into everyone's homes in everyone's languages. Thank you, South Africa, for relying on SABC News for quality news output and for making us your #1 source of information. SABC News, Africa's news leader.
Welcome back. Time for us now to have a more regional focus with regards to the news on the show. We continue with the theme on the crisis within basic education. More than 50 schools in the northern areas of Port Elizabeth remain closed while the interventions from the Education Department is being implemented. It affects nearly 30,000 learners. Disgruntled parents closed the schools 3 days into the new year, demanding that the Eastern Cape Education Department remedy the teacher shortages at schools, provide adequate resources for learners with special needs, and address infrastructure problems at their schools. The placement of recruited teachers to fill vacancies is scheduled to begin today. Several calls have been made to parents to stop their protest action and let the children return to school. Now, our reporter, Abungile Dumake, is in our Port Elizabeth studio to give us a quick update on the story. Good morning to you. Thanks for joining us.
Good morning, Eben. Thank you so much.
Has there been any progress with the Department of Education to address the demands of the teachers, of the parents rather, in northern areas?
Well, indeed, from yesterday afternoon, there was a meeting between the Northern Areas Education Forum and the education authorities at the district offices here in Port Elizabeth, where a meeting resolved that from today, those unemployed graduates who are in the teaching field are gonna be placed in the schools in the northern areas. So that process, in accordance to the forum and the resolutions that were taken in that meeting yesterday, it has to start from today, and those teachers are expected to begin their work from early February, which is in a couple of days to come. So indeed, progress is being made. We did speak to the education spokesperson yesterday, that is Malibongwe Mtima. He did make mention of the fact that the task team that was appointed by the Premier here, Phumulo Masualle, to make it a point that those challenges that seem to be erupting in these schools in the northern areas get to be attended shortly. So this is the first of those, problems that have been facing the schools in that area, that ranging from the teacher shortages, safety at school, the issues of budgeting in many schools in the northern areas, including the fact that there's learners that have special needs that also have to be accommodated in many of the schools in that part of Port Elizabeth. So this is the first in as far as the resolutions are concerned and being implemented, to make it a point that there is no further disruptions in the schools in the northern areas.
And the parents, what are they saying? Are they the interventions have started, but they seem steadfast?
Indeed, they're still steadfast. They're saying that they're not going to allow their kids to go back to class until they physically see that their grievances are being attended to. They're saying that they actually have lost trust into the provincial government, because for a long time now, there have been promises that were made, but there's no implementation that is visible on the ground. So this time around, they are vowing to continue, I would say, boycotting schools and making it a point that no teaching and learning is taking place, all in a bid to actually express their anger and the fact that they really have lost trust onto the provincial government in terms of not implementing what they normally would promise to them as the locals here. So even this morning, we've been driving around here, the northern areas. We actually have noticed that the gates are closed. Rather, it's only teachers who are in the school. When we talk to them, they are just saying they're catching up with their admin work, waiting with the hope that ultimately there will be an amicable solution and, of course, avoid further disruptions in schools here in Port Elizabeth.
And have you managed to speak to any of the learners? I'm sure they can't be happy to not be in school.
Yes, of course. I went to Motherwell yesterday to speak to Luton and Jalaba. He's one of the Clary Park High School learners here in Clary Park. He did make mention of the fact that to me now, to an extent, it's getting boring, to sit at home and do nothing. And of course, in that part of Port Elizabeth, Motherwell, schooling is taking place as per normal. And he sees every morning fellow schoolmates or rather fellow learners from that township going to school. And for him, he has to sit at home. Now he's actually saying that it frustrates him because he doesn't want to be in the same trap as the learners from last year, because as a result of the fact that schools had to be closed last year for 20 days, and the negative impact of that, we've seen a significant drop on matric results last year, having dropped by 20%. So now he says that he doesn't want to see himself in that situation, saying that now we're going to the third week since the start of this academic year, and there hasn't been any schooling taking place. So it's frustration across the board, especially when it comes to the affected students, because sitting at home and doing nothing and they're supposed to be at school really is a bitter pill to swallow for them.
Abugile, and the situation in the rest of the province, we know that there was a sharp drop in matric results and so forth, but what does the rest of the province look like?
Basically, with regards to having dropped on matric results, there's been a lot of outcry from civil organizations on the ground. We understand that in Mthatha, in the former Transkei, some of they actually have taken it to court to actually make an appeal, if I may say, to the MEC of Basic Education, Angie Mutshekga, to make it a point that, amongst the challenges that have actually come to the fore that have an impact onto this drop in matric results is lack of proper resources on the ground in many schools in the rural areas here in the province. There's no furniture. Some learners have to sit on the floor or have to bring their own, chairs from home to be able to sit and attend to school. So now they've actually taken it into court to make it a point that, to an extent, the education department is being forced to actually implement and actually make it a point that there's stationery at schools on time, there's furniture, there's all the needed resources to make it a point that teaching and learning does not really get to be disrupted or to be on a slow pace, as we've witnessed in the past couple of years, because that leads to the matric results pass rate in the province significantly going down on an annual basis.
Abongile, thank you very much for that update. Down in Port Elizabeth, our studio there, Abongile Domako, talking about, the continuing strife within the education or within schooling in and around the northern areas of Port Elizabeth. Now, the Steve Tshwete local municipality in Middelburg, here in Mpumalanga province, has positioned itself as one of the most progressive and thriving municipalities in the country. The municipality is about 150 kilometers from the South African capital, that's Tshwane or Pretoria, and about 170 from the economic giant Johannesburg. The Steve Tshwete local municipality is ideally located for business. It's also situated along the N4, which makes easy access to Mozambique and the port of Richards Bay possible. Now, the Steve Tshwete local municipality executive mayor, Mr. Michael Messina, joins us in studio this morning. Mr. Mayor, thank you. Thank you for joining us.
My pleasure. Thanks for having me.
Steve Tshwete local municipality, Middelburg. Why do you say it is a destination for investment?
First and foremost, we have world-class infrastructure, and we are the well-run local municipality. Accolades can testify to that. Actually, who have even lost counting, because clean and good governance is our tradition. So we really believe that it is about time that we must be given credit for the good work we're doing, and that can only happen through investment, so that we can create much needed job opportunities.
You talk about you talk about that. One of the issues, of course, as always in South Africa, is service delivery. It's something uppermost in people's minds. Tell us, what are you doing within the Steve Tshwete local municipality, and what does the picture look like there?
The picture looks quite good because, like I indicated, the conditions are very stable, and it is because of the economic activities that are taking place, and we believe that they must be taken advantage of. For an example, we are known as the home of stainless steel. Columbus Stainless Steel is located there. Most of Eskom power stations are there. There are many opportunities, to be taken advantage of in the area of agriculture, be it in tourism, manufacturing. Yes, mining houses are also there. And we have the lowest unemployment rate, 19.7%, and we believe that we can actually be an example of zero unemployment in South Africa if all these advantages can be taken care of.
I also understand that you tariffs for municipal service are amongst the lowest in South Africa as well. How do you manage that?
It is, yes, indeed, about the interaction, public participation, when we interact with our communities and ensuring that, they are listened to, and whatever suggestions that are raised are not neglected. We do our utmost, to assist our communities. So that is why the economic activities, that are happening there are actually helping our people to make the most of it. Though I must say that we're not exonerated from the triple challenges of unemployment, inequality, and poverty. That is why I'm here to invite more investors so that we can have zero.
You're talking about investors,
Yes.
inviting investors. I understand you have a program. You have various incentives for investors. Tell us a little bit about how you're going to attract business to the Steve Tshwete municipality.
For an example, we have very reasonable property in terms of pricing, and the services are guaranteed. I mean, water, electricity. Of course, I'm so happy that Eskom has overcome the challenge of load shedding. So you are quite assured of quality services, our road networks, well constructed, water management and quality. We've been certified with Blue Drop status 6 times in a row.
The best water in the country you have.
Indeed, yes. So really we want to invite, investors to come over. And this time around, I want to give them my direct number so that they can interact with my office, which is 013-249-7261. We want to interact directly with investors because we are very serious.
Going forward, you've got fantastic infrastructure. Are we going to see a massive airport being built in the Middelburg area in the near future?
Why not? We are very ambitious. We are very, very ambitious. Look, the steel piping manufacturing is on its way. We are quite excited about the work that is done by our Honorable Premier, Mr. Titi Mabuza. We know that, there's still some work to be done, negotiations. We're looking forward to massive investment. So indeed, that kind of development is not far-fetched.
Mr. Mayor, thank you for joining us. Your municipality is doing a fantastic job and have a fantastic reputation. Thank you for joining us today to tell us a little bit of what's going on in and around Middelburg. For those of you who don't know, that is also known as the Steve Tshwete local municipality. They say their doors are open for business. They're making it easy for investment. If you have an idea, you should contact the mayor. He says he's very much open for business. Thank you for joining us today, Mr. Mayor.
You're welcome.
Time for us now to take a short commercial break. After this, Kendall will give us another sports update. We'll see you now.
For victory requires intense effort and teamwork. When you get to it, there is no turning back because all eyes are on you. When it's action time, nothing should stand in your way. Sports Live tackles and analyzes all the sports action This is the home of all your sport news, updates, and more. Sports Live weekdays at 8:30 p.m.
Good morning, welcome back. I'm Kendall Makhamate. I've got your sports on Newsroom. We'll start off our sports bulletin with the story that South Africa's under-19 cricket team has opened their 2016 World Cup campaign against host Bangladesh in Chittagong. The South Africans restricted the hosts to 247 for 7 in their 50 overs. Now, the Bangladeshis won the toss and chose to bat first in the opening match of the tournament between the hosts and defending champions. While there were helpful contributions from most of Bangladesh's batsmen, especially their 59-run fourth-wicket partnership, the standout performer, Nazmul Hussain Shanto's 73, helped to lift their total to a low but defendable 240 for 7. Vian Mulder was the pick of the bowlers for the tourists. The seamer claimed 3 wickets for just 42 runs. Now, South Africa's under-19s haven't made the best starts to their chase and were 141 for the loss of 5 wickets after 39 overs a little while ago. Now, we stay with cricket, and the Proteas finally won a test after 9 unsuccessful attempts. A star has been confirmed, and the team seems to have finally gotten onto the right track. Even though the series against England was lost 2-1, their 280-run victory at Centurion has gone a long way towards calming some nerves. Stolele Sochele joins us to a little bit of a post-test series dissection and analysis. Thank you very much. You look a little down in the dumps.
Kendall. Good morning, first of all, and good morning to the viewers at home. Yes, I am obviously a bit down in the dumps. I think it's because I'm disappointed with the whole series in a nutshell, you know.
But we won. We got a 280-run victory. The star's confirmed. Kagiso Rabada is going into the history books. His star is shining. Come on.
We didn't win the series, and that's the bottom line. You know, we've lost 2 consecutive test series now, something which was foreign to South African test cricket in particular. If you look at the test beginning, Boxing Day test match up until yesterday, South Africa were on the back foot. South Africa were the second best team. But if you put down the 2 batting lineups, you know, South Africa shouldn't have lost the test series, shouldn't have lost in Durban, shouldn't have lost in Cape Town, certainly shouldn't have lost at the Wanderers. But that's besides the point. What matters now is that we've established certain roles in the South African test team, and particularly with the youngster in Kagiso Rabada, who, the modesty that he has yesterday, having asked him if at any stage did he feel like he was carrying the South African bowling attack, because certainly from where I was sitting, it felt like he was leading the attack with Mone Morkel, and that's a positive I guess they can take out of it. Another one is that certainty in that middle order when it comes to Themba Bavuma. Fortunately, Quinton de Kock also paid the selectors with his ton at Centurion, but there's a lot of positives and there's a lot of negatives.
Okay, you talk a little bit about roles. Let's see if we can try and box these particular things that we need to cover in the time that we've got. Let's talk roles, captaincy, as well as leading the batting attack between Hashim Amla and de Villiers. We've also cut a couple of clips to help us along as we go along. A little bit about de Villiers and Amla batting together and how they actually have been working in tandem. You know, one as a de facto captain, and then the other as the de jure captain, and then eventually changing roles. What do you think has happened in the South African lineup with Hashim Amla and de Villiers swapping roles, so to speak?
It certainly brought us more runs from Hashim Amla, because in Cape Town he went to scored a double 100, came to the Wanderers, scored 100 in the first innings in Centurion, and that 96 he scored in the second innings. But you look at AB de Villiers, he's managed to get his ducks in a row, 3 consecutive ducks, 1 at the Wanderers and 2 in the last test match. But, you know, when it comes to the captaincy in that South African test squad, apart from AB de Villiers and Hashim Amla, there is no other one besides, in my opinion, for Dean Alga. Because if you put that 15-man squad on paper and you look at the roles that each of those players play, and are they consistent? Will they be part of this test squad for the next 3 to 4 years? Certainly from where I am standing, Dean Alga is one of them who should be up for reckoning when it comes to test captaincy. But to lose a captain or change captaincy midway through a test series is also foreign when it comes to South African cricket. But Cricket South Africa did manage to find a replacement in AB de Villiers. Look, 2 matches, 1 win. And he'll be happy when he had registered his first win yesterday, even though he didn't contribute with the bat. But a 280-run win against the Palms will be something he will cherish forever.
There does seem to have been a bit more fight in the Proteas after he took over, though.
Definitely, there was. You can't deny the fact that he's got a lot of influence in that setup. He's been around with some of those players in that setup. Again, Hashim Amla himself, he's also been around the setup, but different roles, sometimes with different players, does work for the team. But if you look at that at the dilemma that Cricket South Africa has now, if you look back in 2002, 2003, where they have put down at 15, they couldn't find a test captain and they came up with Graeme Smith. I think they're in that situation again where they can't find anyone else but A.B. de Villiers, who then earlier this year said he's not too sure if he wants to play every single test series. He doesn't want to play against Bangladesh or this and this, or let me just say the minnows. But you know, that kind of contradicts everything, because a test captain has to be available for every test series.
Absolutely. And let's see about Elgar. Elgar was quite solid. I mean, he went in there. He had a fairly tough partner to play with in Stiaan van Zyl, because he was always getting out until he eventually got a couple of runs under his belt. But he finally got somebody that he could play with. But all along, Elgar has been solid. He's the opening batsman that we need to stay on the side.
Throughout the series, you know, all the openers struggled. If you look at Alistair Cook and his partner at the other end, Alex Hales, you know, every single opener failed in the test series. But when I look at test openers, and particularly in test cricket,
Elgar got a century though.
Yeah, he managed to muster a century. But when I look at test openers, for me, what I want from them is a solid start, give the team a momentum going forward. I'd rather openers go out 120 for 1 for 5 consecutive test matches, where then you question, are they converting their 50s, which was the situation we had with Alvira Peterson. 2 weeks ago, people were asking, should he come back from retirement, because we needed those 60, 70 runs that he provided the Proteas with up front. But Dean Elgar, here's an opportunity for him. Again, Stephen Cook, he showed a lot of maturity, and that's what you see from a player who knows his game and spent a lot of time with in domestic cricket, because he walked to the crease, first ball, he looked comfortable, he looked like he belonged in test cricket, and certainly belonged in that Proteas test squad.
You know what's interesting about Cook is that when he came on, right, he was sitting on 98, and both Amla and de Villiers got out in his very nervous 90s. It must have been quite tough for Cook to carry on soldiering, because these are two stalwarts who've just been knocked off their perches, and he's going to try and get his 100, and there we'll see him actually get that 100 on debut. Fantastic stuff. He finally gets his call-up, and he gets his century on debut.
A hefty paycheck to the selectors, you know. That's how you. That's
you
how
got
you
something right.
Yeah, that's how you pay the selectors. You know, they select you, give an opportunity, and you have to repay them by scoring the runs, and that's exactly what he did. Not once did he look like he was out of play. Not once did he look uncomfortable. And like I said, that partnership between him of 202 with Hashim Amla, that would have given him a lot of confidence going into his innings.
Now, the two players I'd really like to talk about, I know we're running out of time because we need to close the show off as well. Themba Bavuma has been absolutely fantastic. He's gone in there, he's taken it and run with it. He's done extremely well. Let's not talk about Themba Bavuma. We'll find time to talk about this young man, because he got his 100 and his dad was there and everybody was actually celebrating. It's like really good stuff for this man that, you know, he's got his 100.
I was just saying yesterday that the highlight for me was being at Cape Town, seeing him score his 100. But Kendall, just quickly before we wrap up, I said before the test series started, when A.B. de Villiers was mentioned to keep wicket for the first 2 test matches, that this series for me was only about 2 men, and J.P. Dumini and Faf du Plessis, because there's a role now that has been closed out by Themba Bavuma in that middle order. So now 2 people who always saw in that Proteas setup, you know, being regular players in that squad are now struggling, because it's about J.P. Dumini and Faf du Plessis, because that one role has certainly been secured by Themba Bavuma.
Now, well done to him. Now, before we close off, there's a stat that I want to show everybody. It shows where Kagiso Rabada sits amongst the all-time greats in South African bowling. Everybody knows that Kagiso Rabada has just done what would have been thought of as impossible, because he's just gone and done what a lot of people had been wanting to do. If anybody looks at the years as well as what he's done, take us through this quickly.
Makhaya Ntini, you know, he was cheering yesterday, wanting him to get that 14th wicket.
Yeah.
No, it shows the man that he really wants the young man to do well for South Africa. But if you look at the guys, the likes of Hugh Tayfield,
Yeah, but you know, Hugh Tayfield was in 1952 that he's got his 13-wicket haul, and then prior to that, just most recently was Makayantini in 2005, and there's actually been pretty much nothing in terms of the 13-wicket haul since 1952. Then 2005, Makayantini gets it, and then Kagiso Rabada gets his 13 for 144 against England in Centurion. Fantastic stuff by a 20-year-old.
He did it when he was 19 last year, when he bowled out the Knights, or when he got 13 wickets in the Sunfield Series match here at the Wanderers, which I was there and I saw 13 wickets fall. It was like watching a highlights package. But certainly the young man has stood up for South Africa, and he's going places, and it's all up to Cricket South Africa how they manage him, and particularly now in this short period between the one-day series and the T20 World Cup in India.
We're going to try and get him in here to have a chat with us about how it felt, and we'll also see if we can get some more of your thoughts prior to that ODI series, which starts next week. Hey?
Next week on the 3rd.
Kolele, thank you so much for coming through. We do hope that you cheer up a little bit. We did win one match. It's been like nine unsuccessful attempts, and we finally got one right. We're happy. We got a test. So that's Kolele Sochileva sharing his thoughts with us.
Thank you very much, Kendall. The next test series is in August, so that's quite a wait.
Very good, very good. We're going to take a short break. We'll leave it right there with the sports. Stay close.
Well, almost time for us to wrap this morning's proceedings. We ask you a question. There it is. What do you think are the solutions to the basic education crisis? Now, of course, the Minister lambasted teachers, parents, pupils, the like. Elvis, we've got a few live tweets that have come in.
Let's take a look at this one.
What does Rosie Ludick say?
Rosie Ludick says, deployment of principals must stop. We are losing out on the best candidates through this process. Well, that's Rosie's view on that one. What else do we have, Kendall?
Tang says...
if I may, says, utilize legal foreign tutors, or teachers rather. I'm available to help in remote areas. Our kids are our future.
Then Bergi Ngobo says, hey Mzansi, rural school are the best when it is come to discipline. Big up to the Mafuza schools. Early start.
Well, there you have it from this one from Meiwa Machuda says, a good gesture from the JSE, honoring our soccer legends. Now, that was a great one, wasn't it, gentlemen?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's really important.
I thought that was kind of the story of the day today. It was nice. It was nice to see the old governors there getting their moment in the sun.
Yeah, I mean, they've actually gone a long way towards like affecting the South African economy in a positive way. And
it's good. From a soccer perspective, one of the biggest sporting soccer codes or sporting codes in our country, isn't it?
Yes, very astute businessmen as well. They've all made exponential value. That's why they're on the JSE right now. But that's where we wrap it. We thank you for watching the Newsroom show. We'll be back again tomorrow with more. See you then.
Ligamos.